Connect in Philadelphia. A Beasley Media Group station live from the Comcast Business Studios. 97.5, The Fanatic. John Concade, Andrew Salciunas. This is Kincade Salciunas. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Ever think there'd be a relaxing weekend in the summer ever again? Nope, that's never happening in Philadelphia sports. Great weekend for the Phils, taking 2 of 3. Michkov and Sixers rumors just swirling nonstop. It's Kincade Salciunas. John out one more day right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
This is Kincade Salciunas.
Stars in cities, especially like Philadelphia, they are always on the map, and we should expect more winning out of them.
And we'll go to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I am a believer that your best player, I think there is also a responsibility as the team spokesperson.
Kincade Salciunas. John Concade, Andrew Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Monday morning, Philadelphia. I'm Andrew Salciunas alongside Connor Thomas, who's in for John Concade. Connor, get ready to work, man.
Oh, I'm ready. You sound great, buddy.
No, this happens I was sick last week. It happens every freaking time I get sick. Toward the end is when my voice completely goes away. So when I'm better, it's when the voice goes away, which is extremely frustrating. It probably doesn't help that while I'm sick, I have to talk for a living.
That's true.
Probably didn't help that I was a wedding for one of my best friends growing up on Friday. That probably didn't help either.
I'd tell you I'd carry the show, but I threw my back out doing laundry this week.
So you got a couple of washed-up old dudes doing the show today. What else is new? So here we go. Look, great weekend for the Phillies. We're going to do a quick weekend recap over the next 10 minutes because it was a wild weekend. Every time you refresh Twitter, there was something, right? So we start with the Phillies. A lot of you are insane. And I'm not even looking at Connor or Brendan Gunn. I'm looking at our YouTube feed, which, of course, also goes over the radio. So I can't look at you while you're driving your car or while you're listening on your app. We appreciate you for listening. But a lot of you are freaking insane. The Phillies lose Game 1 to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you thought, you would think that they lost Game 7 again. As I told you on Friday, no matter what happened this series, it will not help or hurt what happened during the NLCS. I don't feel better about the Phillies team because they took 2 of 3 against Arizona. I don't feel better because they won 50 games before a lot of teams this season. Last year sucked. It will always be a stain in my memories of Phillies baseball. But come on, guys. They dropped Game 1 5-4. It's not like it was like a beatdown. They lose 5-4. There was a power surge for the Diamondbacks. They hit 3 home runs. And then the Phillies come back and win the next 2. But because of the first game of the series, you would think that they lost Game 7 all over again. And it's amazing to me, Connor, because I kind of went on this rant last week. A lot of Philadelphia fans, when it comes to the Phillies, are hypocrites. If we as radio hosts, who are fans, let me make it clear, we as radio hosts have the slightest bit of a negative attitude toward our teams. Or not even negative attitude, constructive criticism. The Hurts Sirianni thing. We're freaking evil and stupid and always trying to run people out of town, and you can never be happy. Talk about this instead. Talk about that instead. Phillies are one of the best teams in baseball. We pointed out, and we get crushed for it. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, and does this make a little more sense now why we had the conversation we did Friday? Like, I wasn't so much pointing that at you when we talked about the Diamondback series and the fan base reaction that could be coming and things like that. There's a portion of this fan base that it will never be good enough for them. And that is a shame. It really is. Maybe we'll get there as the season goes along, but there's a portion of this fan base, in spite of the Philadelphia Phillies' success, that looks at them dropping a game to Arizona and freaks out and says the team isn't good enough and there's all these issues and everything. We'll get deeper into that. But so a good weekend for the Philadelphia Phillies, a team that currently leads Major League Baseball in winning percentage.
And it's not, we're out 10 games in.
No, like we're
Phillies have played over 70 games, right?
Right. Like
they played 77 games.
I don't know what to say at this point. You have a good baseball team. The quicker we come to terms with that.
A great baseball team.
Yes.
That can get better.
Right.
Like, players on the field itself can get better. They can acquire more talent come trade deadline time, which I keep on pushing for. But bottom line is you have a great baseball team with the opportunity to get better. And that's something that you need to be excited about. And the weird negative reaction toward individual players, toward individual games, I just don't get it, man. I really don't. But the Phillies, I would say good weekend. They didn't sweep the Diamondbacks, so you can't say great weekend.
Well,
but a good weekend where they scored 12 runs in Game 2, and then yesterday you have a dominant performance out of Christopher Sanchez, who part of your weekend news left and right gets a 4-year extension by the Phillies.
And that's why I'd call it a great weekend, because it'd be a good weekend based on what just happened on the field. But the Christopher Sanchez extension makes it a great weekend. That is such an awesome deal for the Phillies and for Christopher Sanchez. Young players in baseball, when you have to go through pre-arb and arbitration, you're not getting paid nearly what you're worth. And that's a sad thing for those players. I'm not crying for Major League Baseball players who are going to make millions upon millions of dollars, but it sucks if you can't get paid. And to pay a young player like that helps them, but it also helps the organization that you're paying a guy that's been unbelievable, that's near the top of the National League ERA leaderboard, $22 million over the next 4 years. Like, that's an absolute steal. That is what we look at when the Atlanta Braves do it, and they sign these guys ahead of term and
we
buy out
celebrate
their arbitration.
or not celebrate.
No,
we complain that the Braves do and the Phillies don't do it.
Well, now the Phillies are doing it, and it's a great spot for them to have done it, and that should make you really excited, not just about this year, but kind of where this team is set up for the future as well.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So good weekend for Christopher Sanchez, not just for his bank account and for his future, but also he pitched 7 scoreless innings yesterday en route to a 4-1 Phillies win. So good weekend for the Phillies. Would love to get your reaction to it. For the people that are always waiting for the sky to fall, we need to have a conversation. Let's just talk. Let's talk it out. Connor and I did this a few weeks ago. John was out on a Friday like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we said we wanted to have a cordial conversation with you. If there is something that's been bugging you, feel free to call in, text in, and we'll talk it out. I'm reaching a point, though, where I don't know if I could be as cordial anymore because I just don't freaking get it. The responses I got to a tweet yesterday, the responses that you got to a tweet Friday night, it's amazing to me when people get so upset with us for not always waving pom-poms or popping champagne bottles for victories for the Eagles. But the second we say something nice about the Phillies, there are people that give immediate pushback, and that's astonishing to me. Would love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to save the most exciting for last.
Okay.
These Sixers rumors, they're flowing like crazy. On Friday, we kind of did a show where it seemed like people were already miserable about the offseason. The offseason kind of started because teams are able to re-sign their players that were on their roster according to, with the new CBA agreement, the new NFL or NBA Players Association agreement. So if you were a player on an existing roster, like the Sixers, were eligible to re-sign Tobias Harris. Clearly, they're not doing that just yet, but there might be a way where they do sign him and he doesn't remain with the Sixers. So first, I'll read you a tweet from Mark Stein from his latest story that Daryl Morey is seeking players this offseason who shoot three-pointers consistently and at a high volume. I love that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that because that's something they've been absolutely missing. That's why when I complain about Tobias Harris so much, Tobias Harris does not fit with the Sixers. He is not fit with James Harden. He's not fit with Ben Simmons. He is not fit with Joel Embiid. It doesn't matter who. I think Tobias Harris is a quality basketball player on a team that's not the Sixers.
Yeah, he's a perfect fit for the Detroit Pistons. He'll be great up there in the Motor City.
He would be. Or if he's got the ball in his hands more and he's got other guys, but like Tobias Harris isn't that kind of player. He doesn't fit with the Sixers. He doesn't fit with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid needs to be able to do his thing, and then if he does not have a shot, kick it to guys that can hit threes consistently, and Tobias Harris hasn't been that guy. So, from Mark Stein's story, this means players like Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, or free agent to be DeMar DeRozan, none of them shoot threes with the sort of consistency and or volume that Sixers president of basketball operations Daryl Morey is believed to be seeking. So everybody that wants the return of Jimmy Butler looks like that might not be a play. DeMar DeRozan, I want nothing to do with because he and Joel Embiid need to stand in the exact same spot in order to score. So that should not be on the radar at all. And then Brandon Ingram, remember we asked about that a few weeks ago. I didn't realize how bad his three-point shooting percentage is, man.
Yeah, he's not great from beyond the arc, and there are other deficiencies with his game and his availability. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not a Brandon Ingram guy, so I'm out on all three of those guys. Jimmy Butler's the closest to being interesting, but that seems less and less like a possibility by the day.
But then this Brandon Ingram thing, this is going to bounce around a lot. I think Brandon Ingram's going to be the name that's floated out there a million times. Shams talks about Paul George. So he believes that maybe there's a sign and trade where Tobias could go somewhere. Chris Haynes said that maybe Tobias goes to New Orleans in a sign or trade. I saw another team. I think Tobias Harris is going to be that guy. He's going to be the sign and trade guy where he goes somewhere. And then the question is, who is the player that you acquire in return for that? Chris P. Haynes said teams that are interested in Tobias Harris, the Utah Jazz. So there's your Lauri Markkanen thing, potentially. The Detroit Pistons have been in on Tobias Harris for months now. It's been weird. The Sixers could have traded him to Detroit for Bogdan Bogdanovic at the deadline. San Antonio pops up, which actually makes a lot of sense for a team that's trying to get a new culture. They're making their way up. The Dallas Mavericks, the Pelicans, these teams could be sign and trade options.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean,
that might be the best thing that Tobias Harris has ever done for us. Is being moved and the Sixers acquiring somebody for it.
The problem is I hear those rosters, and outside of Lauri Markkanen in Utah, I don't really look at those teams as having a get you over the top player. And I don't know. I want to see that max contract spot filled first so that the role players fill in around the 3 stars better than we've had in the past. And I don't know how realistic that is with the top level available players seeming to go by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know who's going to come here. And that sucks. But, this is also an opportunity for Daryl Morey to be very creative. And I will say this. For those of you who doubt Daryl Morey, and I understand why. I've talked about how I think he's slightly overrated in league circles. Daryl Morey is very creative when it comes to trades. His ability to move on from Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, a guy that could not shoot a 3 for one of the best 3-point shooters statistically in the history of the NBA, right? Nobody's calling him Steph Curry, but Seth Curry statistically.
Well, a couple people were calling him Steph by accident.
Yeah, by accident. But he was statistically one of the best 3-point shooters in the history of the NBA. Al Horford, look, I know he's now an NBA champion, and that disgusts me, but Al Horford at the time was abysmal here. He was able to move on from that entire contract and also acquire Danny Green in it, and Danny Green was serviceable for a year and a half with this team. Daryl Morey has been able to be creative to get out of bad contracts, and he's been able to be creative to all of a sudden change a roster and make us think this is the deepest team, this is the best team. So we'll see what he does. There's a million rumors that the Sixers stories will not be going away anytime soon. Now, lastly, before we give you our Eagles topic, because of course we have to have one. Matvei Michkov is coming, dude.
We got the Russian.
It's unbelievable that they draft this kid 7th overall, and the only reason why he falls is it's the Dario Saric situation all over again. You never knew when he was going to end up coming over. And it comes out over the weekend that he's going to be released from his Russian organization, and he's going to be able to come here next season. And now all of a sudden, from year 1 of a rebuild where they were in a playoff push to year 2 where you will have your right away he's your best player. He steps on the ice. I know he's going to have to learn how to play in the NHL, and it's going to be a grueling we've seen guys hit rookie walls all the time.
Right.
But he steps onto the ice, skates onto the ice, I should say, as the best player on the Flyers team right away.
It's awesome. And we heard about a month ago now, maybe a little bit more than that there was some interesting smoke, but we didn't hear anything more than just oh, yeah, there could be something to this whole Michkov thing. I was not expecting us to just randomly get a notification that he's playing this coming season. I thought maybe we'd hear oh, they can get him out of the contract next year.
Just like the goaltender this year, Fedotov.
Yeah.
Fedotov. I don't know, in case John's listening. Fedotov was a guy that maybe was going to come this season, and they got him at with 2 weeks left in the regular season. We were able to get him to come over here. And that's a credit to Danny Briere, Keith Jones. Those are the guys that are, making these things happen. And now all of a sudden, a Flyers rebuild, I'm not going to tell you that they're going to be in the Stanley Cup next season, but a Flyers rebuild that we thought maybe next year would still be a little bit of a slog, but there's exciting times ahead. All of a sudden, you have a legitimate player on your ice. You have a legitimate talent on your ice, and then we'll see what the next moves are. How aggressive are the Flyers this offseason? They have they'll have draft picks in the first round.
Right.
They have multiple draft picks that they could potentially move around if they wanted to. I don't think they totally speed up the rebuild, but they now have options.
Yeah, if there was going to be anything throughout this rebuild that does speed it up, it's when this kid gets here. So you got the accelerating move earlier than anyone thought was going to happen. And now I'm very interested because we just heard from Danny Briere. We've heard from Keith Jones this offseason. They've stuck to the timeline the whole way, saying, hey, it's still a rebuild. We're still a ways away. We're looking at doing this the right way. I wonder how much that changes. So I'm very interested to hear if the company line stays the same when it comes to the Flyers.
Right.
Or if they say, hey, we weren't sure we were going to get this guy. Now that we have, let's get back after
And
it.
to their credit, they did kind of stand pat last year. They said they weren't going to make this push for the playoffs, make these stupid trades to try to get to a playoff spot. They were going to stick by what they believed in. And they did that, and they ended up not making the playoffs, and it was disappointing for an extended period of time. But you understood why they didn't make the playoffs. You understood that that wasn't the goal this year. And now all of a sudden you have your top player coming across, to the United States, and he's going to be wearing the orange and black next year. And that, to me, is exciting, and it makes me wonder how quickly people jump on board with the orange and black this upcoming season on a consistent basis. Because you know how people get. Right? That building started to get a little bit more quiet the last couple of years, and I appreciated it. I respected Flyers fans for doing it because Flyers fans were very tight with their season tickets and did not want to not go to games, and they finally had enough with the Chuck Fletcher regime. Dude, Michkov is going to fill up the stadium next season.
Absolutely. It's insane what one guy seems to be able to do, especially someone we have not seen play in this country yet professionally, but everything you hear about him is the real deal. He should have gone higher. It's kind of, even for people who closely follow the sport and closely follow the player, it's kind of still shrouded in this mystery of what is this kid going to be because he's been stuck in Russia.
Right.
It's such a cool story. And I'll tell you what, if Danny Briere and Keith Jones had been in charge of the Cold War, that thing would have lasted maybe a week and a half.
Oh, good thing we had Rocky Balboa.
That's true.
And Rocky single-handedly ended it himself. All right. So here's the deal. It's kind of an open-ended conversation. As my old friend would say, it's a 4-for-4 kind of day. You can text in. You can call in 610-632-0975. Phillies take 2 or 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I need to know the psyche, the mentality of Phillies fans right now. Not everybody. I was at the ballpark yesterday. It was 1,000,000 degrees yesterday. It was a weird 11:35 start. And the people that were there were on their feet when the Phillies won, right? The 100-degree weather did not stop anybody for getting up and giving the standing ovation when they got the final out. So, the ballpark was packed. But you see social media, and it's crazy, man. There are people that are constantly looking for something bad to happen with the Phillies, and one loss makes them forget about 10 wins that they had. It's wild. One loss equals 10 wins for a lot of people, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, and it's not just socials. It's not just eggs on Twitter. Do they still do eggs? I don't even think that's a thing anymore. But we get the texts. We get some calls on it. There's a portion of this fan base.
Walking along the concourse, you get it.
Right, where it's just I don't know, a lot of the fan base is very in on this team, but there is a section that somehow, mind-numbingly, has not bought into this team yet. And I wish they would because it's pretty fun over on this side.
Yeah,
folks.
it's been an absolute blast. It's been nice ignoring a loss in June and celebrating the next 2 wins. Guys, they won the series. They took 2 of 3. That's all. You take 2 of 3 all season long, you win 100 games. That's how it basically works. And they won another series. I don't understand how there are people that are still constantly looking for cracks in the armor for the Phillies. So let's talk about it. 610-632-0975. The Sixers rumors are swirling. Whatever you have seen, I want to talk about it. What you like, what you don't like. I haven't mentioned Kentavious Caldwell-Pope yet. It looks like KCP, who has been a Sixer for the last 6 years. Never wearing the uniform.
Another one of those guys.
He's one of those guys that people have wanted to trade for, sign for what seems like 6 or 7 years now. Of course, he's going to come here, in his 30s. And one of the big reasons why is because the Sixers have the cap space to do it. That kind of sucks to be that team that has the money to acquire a guy that's chasing after maybe one more big payday. I like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's a nice player for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He's not going to be one of your starters.
Isn't that the whole Sixers thing? That outside of Joel Embiid and who's ever running next to him, you've kind of had a bunch of guys who are nice players for a short period of time?
Yeah. Look, he's had a good career.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I'm talking about who he is now, though.
Right.
I'm not knocking the overall player ability. I'm knocking the ability now. Like PJ Tucker would have been great if you had him at 30 instead of 47. Like there's just it feels too little, too late, too often sometimes.
No, I mean, look, I'm sure he'll be fine. He's only 31. Like I'm sure he'll be fine. It just sucks that it's like, oh well, the Sixers are a perfect landing spot because of the money. That's it. Because of the money, they're a perfect landing spot.
That's going to be the narrative all offseason long.
It's going to be. So whatever you've seen so far, Sixers related that you like or don't like, let us know. Flyers excitement. How quick are you to start buying your tickets already, knowing that Michkov is coming next year? And coming up next, we'll get to your text messages and your calls at 610-632-0975. There's obviously one team that we haven't mentioned yet because there's no news for the Eagles over the weekend. But I have a question. All these teams are trying to win. Duh. Right? No, the Sixers aren't trying to lose. The Flyers aren't trying to lose. The Phillies aren't trying to lose. They don't care about us. They just care about the bottom line, and that's money. No, they're trying to win. The Eagles are considered an organization that many teams wish to be. In the NFL, they're one of the most successful teams since the turn of the century. Even though they've only won one Super Bowl, they're still one of the most consistently good franchises. What makes the Eagles such a winning organization that other teams clearly strive for, especially here in Philadelphia? It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today. John will be back at it tomorrow. We'll discuss this Eagles topic next. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
2 out of 3 from the Diamondbacks.
Kincade and Salciunas. John out today. One more day. We'll be back at it tomorrow. I think he's driving back from Toronto today. He saw the falls. He saw some family. So nice weekend for John Concade. We're hoping to check in with him at some point today because Connor sent a great text to our group chat yesterday saying, man, I'm surprised you weren't already back because of the Michkov news.
Yeah. I expected him to be on a flight or a bus or a train or something to get back here to talk about Matvei Michkov coming over. Now, that story's not going to go away because we have a long way to go until the Flyers take the ice again. But, yeah, Johnny Hockey's probably pretty excited about that one.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get in touch with John later on the show, hopefully around 8:10. We'll wait a little bit because I imagine he's not awake just yet on his off day.
I don't know, man. John's weird. He may be up.
He's probably listening because if you have a phone, you have a radio, and you can stream the show on 975thefanatic.com or if you download the app. All right, so would love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. You can call in or you can text into the show. Kind of a weekend recap to start the show. Phillies take 2 of 3 against Arizona. Need to know why the psyche of a lot of Phillies fans, or what is the psyche of a lot of Phillies fans, that after they lose game 1, you would think the season came to an end. After they won the next 2, not as much credit shown toward the Phillies, which is amazing to me. So let's talk about the Phillies. Let's have a cordial conversation, even though my patience is starting to wane a little bit. Speaking of waning, that's been the term used for the Sixers and their interest or their ability to land Paul George. I'm seeing reports that it's still not done yet, which I told you that on Friday, that it's not over yet. They still have a chance to get Paul George. It just doesn't look like it's trending in the right direction. And that kind of led to that conversation on Friday of, all right, if you don't get Paul George, and if they don't get LeBron, which odds are they're not going to get LeBron, even though LeBron should strongly consider Philadelphia, the question is what next? And I wasn't really a fan of bringing back Jimmy Butler. I saw that report from Mark Stein that they want a guy that can shoot from 3 consistently, and that's not necessarily Jimmy Butler. We've seen in the playoffs. Look, he's playoff Himmy, right? He's playoff Jimmy. He figures it out. But during the regular season, that's not the kind of player that they want. And you shouldn't all of a sudden play a certain way in the regular season and try to flip it in the playoffs.
No.
It's one thing for Jimmy Butler with a bunch of second-round picks. It's another thing with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey trying to figure out how good you can be. That's kind of the regular season for teams that you know are going to go to the playoffs, is figure out how you will play come playoff time.
The other thing, too, with the regular season, like you don't really get the luxury, unless you're a dynasty-type team, unless you have like a prime LeBron-type player. I know there's only like one of those guys that existed ever. But my point is, with Boston in the conference, and what they did this past year to win as many games as they could in the regular season to set themselves up for, I know they took advantage of it, but an easy path to the finals based on matchups. And they had a major advantage because they played so well. The Sixers don't have the luxury to go into this regular season and say, okay, well, we could just kind of figure it out, or we can wait till the trade deadline and try and make a move that, like, no, you have to be pretty good from Jump Street if you're going to compete in this conference. That makes the timeline even tighter.
That's one of the things I complained about when Daryl Morey had his press conference after the season ended. The whole, don't consider my team come game 1 a finished product. And I get it. Like, you're going to acquire some players that will help you come playoff time. But I don't want to go into a regular season again, right? Because how many times have we done that now? With, all right, well, this isn't the roster that we're going to see come playoff time. And like last year, it was a lot of changes. The year before, it was a lot of changes. The year before that was a lot of changes. And so maybe when Joel Embiid talks about wanting continuity and a consistent roster, maybe he doesn't necessarily mean for 3 or 4 years. Maybe he means for 3 or 4 months. Like, maybe that's all it is. That he wants to be able to play with. Right, like, dude, he never played with Buddy Hield until the playoffs. Or until what? He came back for 2 or 3 regular season games?
Yeah.
Like, there are players that he did not play with until it was almost time for the playoffs. Like, that's something that I don't want to see again. Now, part of that is Joel Embiid's injury, but you have to take that into account. Try to come up with a finished product as much as you can come game 1 of the regular season, and then you can tweak as the season goes on. I'm fine with tweaking. Every team does it. The Phillies did it. They told you this year that they're going to start the season with Johan Rojas, and we'll see how it goes. We expect this team to be good enough to win despite how Johan Rojas plays in center field. They gave you their answer. They sent him down to AAA. They're probably going to make a trade for somebody. But that's tweaking. Like, the Sixers over the last couple of years have reshaped their entire roster. after the season started. I don't want to see that again.
Right, but that might be where we're at. And that's why this is frustrating, because as much as I think Daryl Morey and Joel Embiid and a lot of people with the organization would rather just have the set team, it may be another one of those conversations that ends with this is not a realistic expectation. It's tough, but that might be where they're at.
Okay. All right, so here's what we want to do. Obviously, react to the weekend that was. It was a very exciting weekend. Michkov is coming here. Phillies take 2 of 3. And the Sixers, even though it might be frustrating, it was exciting in terms of rumors, right? Seeing the Sixers mentioned with every single player is exciting because you get to think about how this would work. My question regarding the Eagles. The Eagles are by far and away the most successful franchise in the city right now. Have been since 2000, right? Like, 2 teams have won their respective championship. The Eagles in 2017-18 and the Phillies in 2008. So those 2 teams are at the top. The Flyers have gotten to a championship back in 2010 when they got to the Stanley Cup. The Sixers haven't got. Sixers got to a championship in 2001, a long time ago.
Yeah.
But since the turn of the century, it is no question that the Eagles are the most successful organization in Philadelphia. My question for you guys is, what puts them aside from the rest and not just W's and L's? What makes the Eagles such a successful organization that maybe these other teams are going to try to strive for? Because let's face it, if you're Keith Jones and Danny Briere, if you're Daryl Morey, even if you're Dave Dombrowski, who's one of the more successful president of baseball operations in the league at multiple stops now, they should probably all talk to Howie. They should probably all talk to Jeffrey Lurie. I know John Middleton and Jeffrey Lurie have grown into a deeper friendship, and a lot of it is also friendly rivalry because they both are fighting for the top team in the city. They should probably take note of what the Eagles do. So my question for you guys today is, what do the Eagles do that's different than the other team?
The first thing that comes to mind is ownership, and I immediately throw that out because I say John Middleton is a really, really good owner. I say that the Sixers ownership, at least,
try.
Yeah, they try.
I don't like the people that rip Josh Harris. He signs every paycheck.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
time.
Like they open up the checkbook. They have no issue with going out there and trying to make moves to improve the team. They just haven't made the right moves. So it's not for lack of trying.
Right.
And we know the situation with the Flyers. We hope that has changed, and we've already seen this new regime with Briere and Keith Jones have more success in working alongside the ownership. So I don't think it's ownership. Here's what I think it is. The Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in this city that, regardless of year or personnel, coach, anything, they have a definitive strategy for building the roster that they always use. Think about it.
You're right.
The Phillies did not build this roster the way they built the 2008 championship roster. They got Bryce Harper, and they said, we're going to find guys to put everywhere else.
Yeah, 2008 was more homegrown talent than we're accustomed to.
Right. The Sixers don't have a strategy for the way to build the roster. Now, I'm not saying they do a poor job. I'm saying they got Joel Embiid, and it was, let's figure out who works around him. The Flyers, I mean, you got Claude Giroux. Let's figure out who can work alongside him to do what he doesn't do. And now, of course, the post-Claude era, they haven't really gotten to that point yet.
Right.
But the Eagles you get a quarterback you trust.
Trenches.
You build through the trenches.
Yeah.
And then the last thing you try and do is you get some skilled players to try and bolster what the quarterback can do. And that's how they win every single year.
That's a great answer, Connor, because it's an organizational philosophy that has worked for 25 years.
Right.
It's an organizational philosophy that, in terms of this conversation, having an organizational philosophy is a pretty big deal. In terms of just the NFL, I don't understand how other teams don't follow what the Eagles do because it's worked.
Well, you know how other teams don't follow it because we as a fan base don't follow it. Every single offseason, it's don't you dare take another lineman. I want the sexy pick. I want something cool to happen. I want Quinyon Mitchell.
This year was different.
And no, it was. I'm not saying they did a bad thing, but I'm saying we've been asking for the Quinyon Mitchell type player for 15 years.
Right.
And every time. And other organizations are not as disciplined as Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and this Philadelphia Eagles organization is. It's not going to be cool. It might not seem fun at the time, but we're going to damn well win because we do this year in and year out.
All right, so let's continue this conversation. I have an answer, And I'm glad that you gave one that I didn't think about. I want to get Brendan Gunn's answer on this. I want to get your answers on this on the text line or the phone line, 610-632-0975. What is it that the Eagles, as an organization, what is it that they do that the other teams in this city should strive for? Look, the Phillies are in a tremendous spot right now, so this isn't an attack at the Phillies. The Phillies were in the World Series 2 years ago, the NLCS last year. They're the best team in the National League this year. So the Phillies are fine. What they're doing is clearly working. But Sixers, they're waning. Flyers are on the come up. And if you want to try to, model yourself off an organization, any team, it should be the Eagles at this point. So what do the Eagles do that's different? I'll give you my answer. Coming up next, we'll get B Guns. Would love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. So we'll get some text reaction. Coming up next, it's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor's in for John today right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Tyrone Johnson.
It's 97.5 The Fanatic. All right. Weekend recap. Exciting one in Philadelphia. Phillies take 2-3 against Arizona, even though a lot of you aren't excited about that for whatever reason. I need to get into Nick Castellanos, dude. Maybe today's the day people start giving him credit.
Yeah, don't hold your breath, buddy.
Nick Castellanos, this 5-game stretch that he's on right now. Oh, sorry, 6-game stretch. Let me update this on Baseball Reference. The 6-game stretch that he's on. He's batting .478, 11 for 23, 4 doubles, 2 home runs, 8 ribbies. 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. That's kind of typical for him.
Right.
But 8 RBI, 2 home run, 4 doubles. So out of his 11 for 23, out of his 11 hits, 6 of them are extra bases.
And those homers aren't cheap.
No, the one was a double-decker. It was a second deck in left field.
428.
That's a freaking shot. Maybe today's the day that he gets some credit.
Now, here's what I will say, because I went to the day game when I came back from the bachelor party. Who was that against? I'm trying to remember.
San Diego.
Yeah.
That was the Wednesday game.
And he did get a really good pop from the crowd.
Good.
At the plate.
That was the day after the game-winning double.
Yes.
And I asked people to do that.
Right. So, I do think there's a lot of the fan base that is not the vocalist, or most vocal, I should say, part of the fan base that believes Nick Castellanos is doing a good job right now, still has that talent in him. I think people just get caught in this echo chamber when it comes to him, and so much of the commentary has been negative all year that it's hard to pull yourself out of that.
He's up to 226. Guess the last time his batting average was at least 226.
Was it this year?
Yeah.
April 7th.
March 31st.
Oh, my God.
He went 1 for 3 against the Braves in the final game of that series, which raised his batting average up to 300. The next game, he went 0 for 4, which dropped it to 214. And it had never gone above 214 until last week or 2 weeks ago.
See, that's what I'm saying. This is where this can't get lost. It's not us telling you Nick Castellanos has had a great year. I think people hear us saying this and asking why he's not getting more credit, and they hear, oh, Castellanos has had a great year. There's no reason to be concerned. He's doing awesome. That's not what we're saying. All it is when you get one of these stretches, it is unfair to the player to not give him as much compliments and confidence as you give him grief when he goes through those bad stretches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guy who likes to give credit when credit is due, and Nick Castellanos has absolutely deserved all the credit in the world for this 6-game stretch. And here's the thing. What's the alternative? He continues to suck and you just completely continue to bitch about it? Right? Yes. That I was also criticizing Nick Castellanos. I also wasn't saying that this is who he is, because he has had a history of success in Major League Baseball. He's had his history here. Last year he had a great year.
Right.
He had one very bad month and then a horrible playoff series. But he had a very good year last year.
Yes. And guess what? Even if this is the guy he is now, right? Even if this is the Nick Castellanos you get for however much longer he's in Philadelphia, not the stretch he's on right now, but the overall what he's been this year.
Well, not overall this year.
Well, I
don't want that. That's bad.
No, it is bad. But I'm going to spend every day rooting for him to not be that guy.
Right, of course.
Not saying, oh, this guy stinks. They can't win with him. I'm going to believe that he can be the player that he's shown to be in the past, and for large stretches of his stellar professional career. And I'm going to root for him to come out of it, because that helps the Phillies.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, not everyone treats it that way. So
I know.
It is what it is.
All right, what do we have on the text line there, B Gun? Good morning, Brendan.
Yo, what's going on, guys? So we got Blaine from Kentucky checking in on your Eagles question, what makes the team so successful? He has an interesting opinion. He says, I truly believe the Eagles' success has a lot to do at this point with how popular they are. There are other reasons, like the front office and ownership, but I believe players and coaches want to come to a team that always has eyes on it, and that has always been the Eagles. The reason for that is we are polarizing, but either way, if they love us or hate us, there's eyes on us all the time.
That could be true, but there's eyes on them all the time because they're good. If they went 0 for 16 for 4 straight years, nobody would watch anymore.
You think so?
Well, nobody would watch, but were you clamoring to watch the final week of the regular season after Chip Kelly got fired?
No.
I know exactly where I was. I was at my uncle's house. It's the weirdest thing. I was at my uncle's house watching that game. For whatever reason, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember where I was when they fired him. I remember I was driving right by the Cherry Hill Mall. I was listening to the Fanatic before I worked here.
Yeah.
So I do remember that. But no, I know what you're saying. I just don't think there's anything that can kill the Eagles.
No.
I really don't.
No, but I mean, like, interest would wane a little bit if they were trash.
But I don't think that's what Blaine's talking about, our texture there. Like, I think that the perspective of how the Eagles are viewed in this city, if you can come here and win, you're a god.
Yes.
And that's not the same thing as it is with the Flyers and the Sixers and the Phillies. Like, the Eagles are the number one team. There are teams that get close when you go on runs like this. The Phillies are probably ahead of the Eagles right now when it comes to the perspective in the city, simply because they've done what they've done the past 2 years. But that draws players in. Having a team that's held in that high regard and has that ravenous of a fan base, it leads to more players wanting to play here. You get better players because of it. That could lead to success.
That's fair. Okay, those are good points. Now, my answer, by the way, because I wanted to give you mine, why the Eagles are a better organization or the best organization in the city. And to me, it's the ability to just say, all right, this isn't working, so we're going to move on. And I go with the Carson Wentz contract, right? And I know there was a report last week that if Jalen Hurts doesn't play well next year, they could do the same thing. And I don't want to even get into that conversation because I think Jalen Hurts does have a better season. But they have shown that they are not afraid to move on. Have they kept some guys around like thank you contracts? I thought they did that with Brandon Graham after they won the Super Bowl. You know what? Brandon Graham ended up balling out on that 3-year deal despite getting injured for one of those seasons. So my thing with the Eagles is they see a problem and they go, all right, let's cut bait. We'll deal with the dead cap hit. My name's Howie Roseman. I'm a cap wizard. I will move on. I have seen other teams in this city hold on to players for far too long. They didn't see the problem, or maybe they did see the problem, but they would try to find other ways to fix it. Some people might say that Joel Embiid, they should just move on from Joel Embiid. I don't say that because Joel Embiid's a freaking star. But the Eagles don't hesitate, and they don't have wasted seasons. They don't. Even a year where they might not make the playoffs, like Carson Wentz's first year, at least it was rookie coach, rookie quarterback, right? Like you knew that there was a bigger plan down the road. And that, to me, is probably the best thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. When they clearly thought Donovan McNabb was done, they weren't afraid to trade him to a division rival, right? Like, for me, the thing that makes the Eagles such a great organization that the other three teams should try to mirror or model their organizations off of is the ability to just move on.
I think it's an amazing point. And there's more on that I want to get into because I think there's levels to why that is a very good reason why this could be happening.
All right, then we'll expand on that. Coming up next, we'll get Brendan Gunn's answer. Would love to get yours on the phone line, text line 610-632-0975. And we kind of talk about Nick Castellanos and the pushback that he gets in this city, and deservedly so at times. Connor Thomas put out a tweet Friday night. I put out a tweet yesterday. And it's amazing the negative reaction that we got to both of them. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor and for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic. 101 on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. John out for one more day. He's back at it tomorrow, and then he's off again Thursday and Friday. Slacker.
Must be nice.
Must be nice, man. Imagine taking vacation. I have no idea about that. Connor's filling in for John today. Again, John will be back tomorrow. We're going to try to talk to him later on today because we thought he was going to come in early with the news of Matvei Michkov coming to Philadelphia next year. So here's what we're talking about today. We're doing a bit of a weekend recap kind of show, and it's mainly filled with excitement. At least I would hope. The Phillies should be filled with excitement, but for a lot of you, for some reason, it's still not. So coming up in about 8 minutes, we're going to read some of the replies to Connor's tweet from Friday and some of the replies to my tweet yesterday because people are still feeling a certain type of way about this Phillies team who have the best winning percentages, Connor pointed out, not just in the National League, but in all of Major League Baseball. So the fun weekend for the Phillies, all the rumors surrounding the Sixers. I'll give you more about those coming up as the show continues because they've been rumored to players that they like, players that they don't like, and then the Flyers, Michkov, obviously a big deal. And what our main topic today is, and it's a way to add the Eagles into this conversation. What do the Eagles do so well as an organization that the other teams should try to strive for? And I loved Connor's answer, and Connor loved mine. So this is a show of loving today.
A whole lot of love in here today.
Connor said it's because they have a philosophy, right? It's get a quarterback, and it's built through the trenches. The Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers have not had a similar philosophy since the turn of the century, since 2000. In 24 years, you've seen different variations of the Phillies. You've seen different variations of the Sixers. You've seen different variations of the Flyers. You've seen legit rebuilds for all three teams. Playoff drought for the Phillies that lasted 10 years. The Flyers finally decided to cut bait with a lot of players and a lot of members of the front office a couple of years ago. The Sixers, we know all about the process, but we also know about all the variations of this Joel Embiid era since Ben Simmons has left, even pre-Ben Simmons. We've seen so many different teams. The Eagles have an organizational philosophy. And my answer that I gave is I love that the Eagles realize when there's a problem and they move on. They don't wait. They don't try to see, well, maybe it's going to be better next year. If they see a problem, they address it. Sometimes they address it during the season. We saw it with a team that was, I think it was 8-1 when they made the move. After they lost to the Commanders 2 years ago.
Right.
They lost their first game of the season, and that week they signed Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. They lost their first game of the year, but we all kind of pointed out the interior defensive line being a bit of an issue. So Howard Roseman goes out and gets the two best veteran free agents that were available to play, and they both made an impact. Suh more than Joseph, but they both made an impact for that team. They got to the Super Bowl that year. So that was my answer, and I know you wanted to expand on that a little bit.
I did, because the NFL is unique in this. In basketball, you can have a team that's okay during the regular season, finds their way in, has a player that gets hot, and the next thing you know, if you have a superstar player, who knows what happens in the postseason.
Yeah, you saw the Jimmy Butler a couple of years ago, just this year with the Mavericks. I mean, they were the fifth seed going to the playoffs.
Hockey's the same way. You get a hot goalie, you get a team that figures it out, you can find your way to a championship. Baseball, the same way. We've seen it happen the past 2 years in the National League, once with the Phillies, once with the Diamondbacks. But the NFL, your championship contention is more binary than any other sport. There are very few teams in the NFL that I look at and I say, maybe they could be good. Maybe they could win the Super Bowl this year. Like, it's either you are a championship contender or you're not. And I think that line is bolder in the NFL than any other sport. And that's why it's so important that the Eagles change quickly. Because it's not like in baseball where you say, well, we just have to make it in. And then you could find a way to do it. Or hockey or basketball. No, you have to. If what you're doing is not putting you in the top tier of teams,
right,
you are wasting your damn time. And the Eagles don't waste time.
No, they don't. And that's something to celebrate. So what do the Eagles do that the other teams in this city should try to mold into their organizational decisions, their philosophies, you name it? We'd love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. B-Gun, what was your answer before we hit up the text line and then get into these tweets that we got over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, to much of the dismay of Tyrone Johnson, who did a show on this guy a couple weeks ago. I mean, dude, there's a direct correlation with Jeffrey Lurie and this team's success. Like, there just is. And that trickles down to that philosophy that Connor's talking about. That trickles down to maybe letting Howie Roseman get away with a couple of things and showing some patience with him, which is the direct opposite of what they do with players. They trust their front office to have a plan and see it through. And then when things go bad, you don't fire him right away with the haste decision. Oh, you're out of here real quick. They let him work it through. And much of the times, it's came back and helped them out a little bit. It's going to be funny, though, because there's an in-between the front office and the players. Players are quick to move on.
Right.
Howie Roseman, there's a little bit of a leash. We're going to find out this year with Nick Sirianni, should they have gone the players route and got rid of that guy after the first thing he did wrong, or is it going to pay off by giving him that leash that they give Howie Roseman?
Yeah, we'll see. Then there was a report from Jeremy Fowler. I don't know if it was necessarily a report over the weekend, but Jeremy Fowler reporting that Nick Sirianni is basically saying, "Here you go, Kellen. Keys. Here's the keys of the offense." First off, I think we all kind of assumed that,
Right.
like months ago. Welcome to the timeline. I get he's a national reporter. He's not covering the Eagles.
But it's just the response to that is, duh.
Yeah, but like it's also yay.
Yes.
Like, I'm glad that that's what it is, and maybe that's why Sirianni is still here, because he was willing to say yes, sir, to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, whereas Doug Peterson didn't do that a few years ago, and that's why he was no longer the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, what do we have on the text line, Brendan, with all of our topics today, all of our discussion points, because all the teams are on the table today, because the busy weekend for the Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers, and then, of course, our Eagles topic that we have for you today.
Yeah, and it's funny because I never realized how negative the people were on the Phillies until you just pointed it out to me the second you say something good.
You haven't realized? Where have you been? Under a rock?
I guess.
Or maybe your algorithm's different than ours. I don't know.
But we get a text. Of course, there's no name on it, but he says the Phillies just continue to beat sub-500 teams, and Arizona's more the same. So what have the Phillies won so far? What's working? I don't see a finger or a ring on Bryce Harper's finger.
Okay. Here, do we have the name of that person?
No name,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, if
they're
you're
faceless.
If you're still listening, I just want to speak to you directly. You're right. They have not won the World Series. I need to know, and this is I can't believe I have to ask this question. What position would you rather be in? The Phillies, who, yes, lost the World Series 2 years ago, peed away an opportunity to get back to one last year. I will never forgive them for them. Have come back year 3, 51-26, best record in the National League, best winning percentage in Major League Baseball. Trending upward. The ability to still get better, and they will. I expect them to with the trade deadline. Or would you rather be like the Cubs, who have teetered in making the playoffs the last couple of years? They paid $1 billion for a new manager who I think is completely overrated. I've said that a million times. Would you rather be the Reds, who have a young, exciting team that a lot of people thought they would win the division? They're dead last right now in the NL Central. There are so many teams. Hell, I'll say the Diamondbacks, who got to the World Series last year. They're 2 games under 500. Like, I know that we have them as a World Series or bust team. I do too. If they lose this year, if they fall short of getting to the World Series, it's a disappointment. It is. I won't shy away from saying that. But my question for you is, what else? Right now, in the middle of June, back end of June, final week of June, where else would you rather be right now?
Like, what else do you want? I mean, even look at, like, Atlanta. Look at the Dodgers. Teams with monster payrolls that have gone out and got stars that have built as good of lineups as there are in the sport. What do they have to show for it the past couple of years since the Phillies have been back in their contention window? They haven't won squat. Like, it is not, this is a main issue that I have with the way some people consume sports. It's not a you versus this idea of how great a team could be. It is you versus your peers. You can't just say, well, I don't care that other teams that have put all this money in are choking in the postseason every year and winning a division isn't the same as it used to be and everything. I think some people just think the Phils should win every year, regardless of how tough it is and how other teams are not getting the job done, even if they have more at their disposal. Now, this year, the Phillies have plenty at their disposal because of what Dave Dombrowski's done. But it's just like, it's not as simple to say, oh, why haven't they won yet? You have to compare them to the teams they're competing against and realize by standards around Major League Baseball, they've been pretty damn good.
well, to tie in the two conversations, does the Eagles sustain success for what? Let's say 20 years because they only go 1 year without missing the playoffs. Does that make people say you can't be negative about this team because there's always something to be happy about? And then the Phillies, they go on their 4 or 5 year runs and then they're terrible for 10 years. Does that make people a little bit more angsty with the Phillies?
Maybe because people go, if they don't win, what was this all for? And I get it. Like, people still complain. It amazes me, but people still complain about that 07 to 11.
Yeah,
squad.
that they only got one.
That they only won one. And what did 102 wins have to do for me when they ended up losing the wild card round or the first round of the playoffs with the St. Louis Cardinals? And I totally get it. Like, if they don't win a World Series when Bryce Harper had been here from start to finish, we're going to look back at it and go, damn, that freaking sucked that they were so close and they choked away an opportunity against the Arizona Diamondbacks and a team that they could have beaten, the Texas Rangers, if they were able to get to the World Series. But I'm not 7 years from now.
No, and I'm also
today.
I'm also going to let people who think like that in on a little secret. Okay? Andrew's going to be upset if the Philadelphia Phillies do not win the World Series this year. Connor is going to be upset. Brandon's going to be upset. When John comes back from his 40th vacation, he's going to be upset. Like, we will all be just as upset as you if the Philadelphia Phillies don't win it all. That is the expectation. But you know what? You don't get a medal for being upset about the, 60 losses they're going to have in the regular season. You don't get on some special list of you're a better fan or you are more rational about this team. Enjoy all the wins. We understand what the goal is. But taking away your enjoyment of what could be a 100-plus win season is insane. You're killing your chance to enjoy this season by being overly critical of a team that we all see the expectations for. I don't understand why people think they have to be a martyr for this team's issues instead of just enjoying a season where they're very successful.
So, to date, June 24th, the Phillies have played, how many games did I tell you? They've played 77 games. Mm-hmm. So, through their 77 games, the Phillies have had the second easiest schedule in terms of the opponents that they've played and their win-loss record at the time. All right? So, the Phillies have the second easiest. I'll give you the top 10. So the easiest schedule so far has been the Cleveland Guardians. And the Guardians are, they still in first place, they fall to second. They're in first place of the American League Central. They have taken advantage of that schedule. If I were to ask you right now, which team is more dangerous come playoff time, Phillies or Guardians, you would say?
Phil's, not close.
Okay. Then it's the Phillies. Then it's the St. Louis Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals have had the third easiest schedule in Major League Baseball. They're only 2 games over 500.
Yep.
Would you rather be 51-26 or 39-37?
I'm going to take the first one.
And a lot of people have the Cardinals being a bad team this year. Okay, so they're taking advantage, maybe. Who would you rather be, Phillies or Cardinals?
Phil's.
Okay.
Easy.
Is anyone pointing out the strength of schedule for the LA Dodgers? The Los Angeles Dodgers, to date, have had the 4th easiest schedule in Major League Baseball. They have the 4th best record in Major League Baseball. Is it because of their strength of schedule? Or are people saying, well, when healthy, they have Mookie Betts, they have Freddie Freeman, they have Shohei Ohtani, they have a good pitching staff?
Yeah, I'd say they're saying that, and I'd still rather be the Phillies right now.
I think that's a collision course for the playoff.
Yeah.
I can't say I'd rather be one or the other, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I think they're the 2 best teams in the National League.
Yeah.
And there's no question.
I look at the recent postseason success. That is the tiebreaker.
I got you. It's fine. The Rays have the 5th easiest schedule. Come on. Do we really have to say who would you rather be, the Phillies or the Rays?
No.
The Rays are 2 games under 500. The Chicago Cubs, I just told you, are playing below expectations because people thought Craig Counsell was this incredible manager. They're 4 games under 500. The Detroit Tigers are in the top 10. They stink. The Texas Rangers, the defending World Series champions, are in the top 10 in terms of strength to schedule. They are 37-40, 6.5 games out from the Mariners for first place. Who would you rather be? The Pittsburgh Pirates are in the top 10. They stink. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they are in the top 10. You just took 2 or 3 against them. And then there's the Minnesota Twins, who are in first place, their division. you'd rather be the Phillies. Like, they're in second in the division. Sorry, behind the Guardians.
Yeah.
I don't get this strength of schedule conversation. I think it's such an easy way to just say, oh, I need to wait and see before I come up with a determination. Guys, they are beating the pee out of a lot of these teams, too.
Yeah, if you can't determine what you need to this point in the season about the Philadelphia Phillies, I don't know what you've been watching.
I don't either.
I'm not telling you they're perfect. I'm telling you they're pretty damn good.
And look, they've had one pretty difficult stretch where they took care of business against the Brewers, and then they had to play the London series. They swept the Brewers, by the way, the first-place Brewers. Then they go to Mets in London. Forget that it's the Mets. It's the whole London thing.
Yeah.
And they split out there. And then they come back, and they drop 2 of 3 against Boston, 2 of 3 against Baltimore. History has shown the team that goes abroad and comes back drops the next 2 series. There are statistics that back that up. And they come back, and they take 2 of 3 against the Padres, 2 of 3 against the Diamondbacks. Their next difficult stretch will be July, when they take 3 against the Braves, 3 against the Dodgers. That'll be the next difficult stretch. If you need to wait and see until then, I think you're crazy, but fine. There's your next difficult stretch to keep an eye on. And there's no weird going abroad before it. Bothers me, man.
It should. It's not this complicated. It's not this difficult. Just enjoy what the team is right now.
Yeah.
We'll get to the postseason when we get to the postseason.
Absolutely. Okay. Connor, what was your tweet in response to these negative Nellies when it comes to the Phillies? You put out a tweet Friday night that you got crushed for.
Yeah, the game had just ended against the Diamondbacks. Game 1, the Phillies lost. It was not their best performance. I mean, you could chalk that up to Taijuan Walker, which is what I do, and I said tough one. The Phils are going to beat the brakes off this team the next 2 games. Book it. And the responses I got, they don't have the lineup to do that to really any team, especially good ones.
They don't have the lineup to do it. They scored 12 runs the next night.
Interesting. We've got another one. Surely this will age well. That's just more they're being mad at me. LOLOK. One with the asterisk next to it that just says get swept, saying the Phillies are going to get swept.
Okay.
Not with an outfield all hitting under 210. Stop the homer nonsense. You sound like a 10-year-old. Someone calling me Connor Pom-Poms. The only thing you can book is this team, as currently constructed, is not a championship squad.
Oh, that's just outrageous.
Like, what are we doing here?
Have any of those people since responded?
Nobody's apologized, I don't believe.
Maybe not even an apology. Just, all right, you were right.
I don't believe I've gotten those from
No,
anyone who
nobody's followed up.
Now, I had people saying that I was right that did not initially respond to that tweet. But, yeah, these are the same people that have been tweeting all year, that have been negative on any downturn. It's crazy to me that there are people out there that consume sports like this.
All right, so I put out a tweet about Castellanos yesterday after he drove in an RBI to make it 1-0 Phillies. And I said these last handful of games are a reminder that Nick Castellanos was a great baseball player before coming to Philadelphia. We saw many glimpses of how good he was last year. We're starting to see it again. Because let's face it, just look up his numbers. Not that I think you should, but look back at his numbers in Detroit and Chicago and Cincinnati. His numbers were tremendous. He had a very good year last year in Philadelphia. Year 1 was a disappointment. Year 3 so far has been a disappointment. The amount of people that responded with, let's wait until the playoffs first.
What does that even mean when it comes to Nick Castellanos?
Do we not remember? Look, he was horrible in the NLCS.
As was everybody.
Bryce
basically.
Harper, Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto, everybody but Brandon Marsh in the NLCS. In the NLDS, he was the greatest player in the history of baseball. He was Babe Ruth. Like, in the NLDS, he goes deep off of Strider twice in a game when Strider was one of the best pitchers in the world. What is this? I got to see it in the playoffs first. He literally did it not long ago in the playoffs. There's a weird relationship with the Phillies right now, and it has to just be the expectations conversation. That's got to be it. So we'll continue this conversation coming up next. You can call in, you can text in 610-632-0975. We'll get to more of your texts coming up next. I mentioned earlier, and I'll go through them again coming up next. There are names that the Sixers might not be interested in based off of what the Sixers are looking for. I'll tell you those names. But then I want to try to figure out who are those names that the Sixers should be interested in. It's Kincade Salciunas, Connor, and for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
2 out of 3 versus the Diamondbacks.
Salciunas. John off today. He's back at it tomorrow. Connor in for today on this Fanatic Monday, presented by Pierce Phelps Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning Contractors. Visit nopaybryant.com for flexible spending options on a new heating and cooling system. We got a lot of stuff on the table today. We'd love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. When it comes to the Phillies, I want to say your overall excitement, but for a lot of you, it's not excitement. For a lot of you, you're still waiting for the sky to fall. And I really just don't get it. Like, what is keeping you from getting excited? It's amazing when Connor gets a response to his tweet from Friday night. Phillies lose on Friday, and he puts out a tweet that they're going to beat the doors off the Diamondbacks the next 2 nights. And people respond with, not with this lineup. They literally scored 12 runs the next game. Like, you who put out that tweet, you who feel that way, you who agree with that tweeter or did agree with that tweeter, what are you saying today? Like, are you going to say, oh, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while? Or are you going to say, yeah, maybe I overreacted a little bit?
That's the thing, though. I feel like I've done this, and I'm not trying to make it a me thing, but I feel like I've had this conversation 6 or 7 times already throughout this season.
Yeah.
About, like, this team has already proven they're good. They're going to continue to prove they're good. They're going to bounce back from the stuff that they've had trouble with. And every time, it's the same argument with new people. It's just like, oh, well, they have this issue. They're not good enough. They don't do this well. Guys, when are we going to come around to just enjoying this?
Like, I wonder, at some point, you said new people you talk to.
Right.
So maybe the older texters, tweeters, not older in age, the people that have complained earlier in the year, maybe they finally reached where you're at, or the smart way of being at. And maybe as time goes on, you'll get more and more people to the point where there won't be anybody that's doubting. Hopefully.
Well, yeah, sure. That's the consolation prize. You know what the real thing that should happen is?
Just enjoy it.
You see a team this good that we talked about over a month ago, potentially being the best Phillies team we've ever seen. And you jump on the ride because you understand how good they are.
Absolutely.
That's what I want for this fan.
That's exactly what people should be doing, but unfortunately, there are people that are still worried about whatever. The other thing, I mean, it was a busy weekend, so the Phillies take 2 of 3. Michkov is coming to Philadelphia. Unbelievable. We're going to try to get in touch with Johnny the K. Is he coming on? So John Concade will be joining us at 8:10 today as he makes his drive back from Toronto. So John is going to call in to talk about Michkov. Can't wait to talk to him because I know he's fired up about it. We thought he'd find a way to come in today just to talk about it. So we'll talk to John at 8:10. I also have to tell John about the peace treaty that was offered to the best show ever.
Oh, so this was not discussed with John. You kind of just went out on a limb and offered a treaty. What if John wanted to continue the war?
We'll talk to him about it at 8:10.
Oh, wow. I don't know.
We'll talk to him about it at 8:10.
Ask forgiveness, not permission. I respect it.
Could be a Trojan horse.
Could be. Who knows? We'll talk to him at 8:10. I gave a very good treaty to the best show ever that they liked.
What were the terms?
I'll tell you at 8:10.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
I don't know if I can handle this.
Look, sometimes a guy has to take care of business by himself.
Oh,
You watch Game of Thrones, it's not like the King's Court is always like a part of it.
take care of business by himself. This all generated because I left the state for like 3 days. Then I come back and we're at war on
We're
like
at
4
war.
different fronts.
All right, so I wanted to talk about this. So the Sixers, there was an interesting tweet that came out from Mark Stein, and I completely agreed with it, even though it's going to bother a lot of people because I know a lot of people want Jimmy Butler. So Mark Stein reported that Daryl Morey is seeking players this offseason who shoot three-pointers consistently and at a high volume. So in Mark's story, he mentioned 3 players that are available that don't fit that mold. Brandon Ingram, DeMar DeRozan, who I am vehemently against. I love him as a basketball player, not with the Sixers. This isn't a Russell Westbrook. I love watching him, but I don't want him on my team. I would take DeMar DeRozan on my team if Joel Embiid didn't exist.
Right.
They stand in the same spot.
Yes.
You can't make it's Josh Richardson all over again.
Or Al Horford all over again.
Right.
Guys that don't fit that are good other places.
Yeah, so DeMar DeRozan should not even be a thought in Daryl Morey's mind. And the other name is Jimmy Butler. Mark Stein writes, none of those shoot threes with the sort of consistency or volume that Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, is believed to be seeking. So I want to talk about this. Who is then? Like, who are those players that the Sixers should be going after? I did see one report from Keith Pompey. I told you about a potential sign and trade with Tobias Harris. One of those sign and trade options that Keith Pompey is reporting could potentially be L.A. And Paul George comes back here because Paul George wants a max contract. Now, he could just get it here.
Right.
He's a free agent. He could just get it here. But L.A. could get something out of it by getting Tobias Harris and making things work. So there's still a chance that Paul George could come here. That's why I said last week, don't completely discount or completely count out Paul George. This is probably agents are talking. Things will. It's only June, so things are going to be constantly coming out both ways, both sides of the pendulum when it comes to Paul George, right? But who are the players that fit that mold? According to Mark Stein, guys that could shoot threes at a high volume and make them consistently. Paul George is one of them.
Yep.
You've mentioned Lauri Markkanen, you yourself a couple of times. Then you start wondering who else.
Well, as far as max contract guys, there aren't that many. As far as role players,
You'll be able to find a bunch.
Run through the list. Bring back Buddy Hield.
I would not be surprised, and I would actually be happy if Buddy Hield came back.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with the Game 6 performance when he went off. And Nick Nurse inexcusably didn't play him for the entire third quarter. Buddy Hield, I wish had more time with Joel Embiid.
And I think that's a thought process the Sixers share. I think they'd be silly to eliminate that possibility just because he didn't build chemistry with a guy who barely played with him when he was here. So,
right.
I could see that. I'm going to throw a name out there. I know people don't like this name, but when you talk about high percentage, high volume three-point shooters, Klay Thompson. Thoughts?
It depends on the deal, dude. So I saw what was the report I originally read to you probably a month ago now, that they could sign a guy like Klay Thompson.
It was the Bruce Brown deal where you could flip him if things don't go out.
Right.
You can get a max player later on if it doesn't work.
Right. It's the one-to-one deal where it's a team option or player option in year 2. I forget exactly if it was player or team option, so forgive me. But you overpay Klay Thompson to be able to make the money work for a trade that Brendan Gunn just talked about.
Right.
I hated that idea. Not that it was Klay Thompson. I just hated that idea from the beginning because it's exactly what I don't want to see. It's exactly what we talked about earlier in the show. I don't want to not have close to a finished product of a roster come game 1.
Okay.
I don't want to. I don't want to sign Klay Thompson in hopes that you could trade him 2 or 3 months into the season.
Now, I think the guy's just flat out washed on top of that.
Yeah, he shot only 38% from 3 last year. And 38 is still pretty good, but considering what he used to be, I mean, that's a fall off. At one point, he was a 44% three-point shooter in his career.
Ridiculous. Benched at one point.
Yeah, like
he was coming off the bench.
Just 2 years ago, he was shooting at least 41%. So
Right.
he goes from 41% to 38%. That's not good enough.
I know. I'm just thinking about potentially available players that fit that mold. There aren't that many that are attractive when it comes to their ability to be part of a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I mean, look, he used to be an incredible defensive player too. Klay Thompson he's just like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's another guy that had been on the Sixers for 7 years, but he's never been on the Sixers. Remember, there was Klay Thompson rumors years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And
everybody wanted
and everybody wanted, rightfully so, because he would have been a great fit with the Sixers. And then, unfortunately for his career, he misses 2 straight seasons with injuries. I just don't know. I don't think you're getting that great of a version of Klay Thompson if he comes here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at another name that popped up because the Miles Bridges rumors have been out there. Not Mikhail, Miles Bridges.
Yeah, and I want nothing to do with him.
He shot 34% last year.
And he's a horrible human being.
Right.
I want nothing to do with that guy.
But I mean, even strictly talking basketball, he's a career 34% three-point shooter. He doesn't fit the mold. Every question we ask about the Sixers is going to ultimately lead to this. There are not many options.
No, there aren't. There really aren't. And that's when you start getting concerned about what they can do. Now, they can make trades. And I think that might be more of what they have to do. Say bye-bye to the first-round draft picks over the next couple of years.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, you should. We'll see what they end up doing. I mean, you might see returns of like D'Anthony Melton on a cheap deal.
I don't mind that.
Like that's what it's going to be. And so whether or not you're in favor of that, you can let us know. You can text and you can call in 610-632-0975. Brendan, maybe we'll read the text next. I know you said we had a trade Embiid text. We'll talk about it. I don't do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if more and more people get to that side at some point. So we'll get to that. Don't forget, coming up at 8:05, today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. Speaking of B. Gunn, we have a Game 7, ladies and gentlemen. We have to get an update on the Futures Championship ticket that Brendan Gunn has let ride despite Edmonton at one point being down 3-0 and me opening up my big mouth saying if you're down 3-0, you should just end the series.
Yeah, nice.
We have a Game 7. So we'll get an update from B. Gunn coming up in the 8 o'clock hour as well. Your text coming up next, 610-632-0975. It is Kincade and Salciunas. Connor and for John today right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now is the time to become a Fanatic MVP. Go right now to
Kincade and Salciunas. John in for Connor today. Sorry, Jesus. Connor in for John today.
Correct. There we go.
John is en route back to the United States of America. Is he in the U.S. of A? Do we know that yet?
Don't know.
All right, so we'll find out the travels of John Concade, who was in Toronto over the weekend. So we'll find out where he's at, and we want to have him on to catch up, but also to talk about Michkov. I mean, you said it best. You're surprised that he's not in today. Like, find a way to get in here no matter what, because Michkov, he has been excited about this since the second they drafted him. If you guys don't know John is very connected with the Flyers organization, so he has heard a lot of the things to be very excited about what will be a player who steps on the ice and be the best player on your team immediately.
That's pretty cool. That doesn't really happen all that often.
No, and here's the deal. This is not me taking a shot at the Philadelphia Flyers or the Flyers fan. Every Flyers prospect is supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And I always hesitate to get excited.
Wow.
And it's not just the Flyers. The Phillies have been that way too.
You're anti-prospect.
I'm anti-prospect, period. It's not like the NBA where you draft a kid and you're going to find out quickly who he is in the NBA. The story won't be written after their rookie season, but they play. It's not like football where you draft a guy and they play. There's no minor leagues. There's no AHLs. Like, it's right away you play. And so I don't get excited about Flyers prospects. What I do get excited about is Russian players who are studs in the KHL and then come over here.
Yeah.
That I'm excited about.
If Matvei Michkov is not an exceptional hockey player, I'm not calling him Gretzky or anything like that, but if he's not a guy that you look at and say, that dude is a problem every time he steps on the ice, I'm going to be so upset.
Look, if the Flyers win a cup in the next 10 years, it's because Matvei Michkov is your best player.
Or it's because he's good enough that he attracts other players to want to play.
Well, yeah, but he'll probably be the best player on the team. At least I would think.
Yeah, I'm
sorry to put too much on the plate of this kid that was supposed to be a top 2 pick, but the only reason why he fell to 7 was because of uncertainty with his contract.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I just think another part of the issue with the Flyers, we talk about the Eagles' success, right, and that philosophy they have and how to build a team. I don't think they ever really got somebody to go alongside Giroux to complement him well enough.
They never did. You're right.
That's like
except for 1 year of Yager.
Yeah, right. So he could be the best player on the ice. I don't want to see another, hey, we have a top player of a decade, and you just get nothing for it. So
absolutely.
There's more that needs to happen.
So we'll talk to Johnny coming up at 8:10. Before John, we'll have today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. We'll get an update on the futures tickets. Speaking of B. Gunn, Brendan, what do we have on the text line today?
Yeah, we got a couple Sixers coming in. We need you guys to start giving your names. Put your names in it, because I got another nameless guy. But he says, Sixers need star power. The Jazz have interest in Tobias. Can we make a sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen? Or how does a Gary Trent reunion with Nick Nurse sound to you guys?
So Gary Trent Jr., he's a nice basketball player, so I would take him. He's a guy that you're not going to be paying a max contract for. Like, look, the one thing that I think John gets held up on is, all right, who's the max player that you're going to get? And we all talk about it because that's the sexy name that the Sixers are going to get. They'll have to fill 12 more roster spots.
Yeah.
Like, guys like Gary Trent are players that you need to acquire. Maybe not him specifically, but you're going to need to find guys. You're going to need. I saw Kyle Lowry name popped up again. You might still want to have another guard, because do you really want to rely on what will now be, 39-year-old Kyle Lowry to play legitimate minutes for you?
That's not ideal.
Like, they're going to need another point guard. They need to get 2 to 3 wing players. I would still like a better backup center. They might not do that this year because they might not have to. You're going to need a better stretch 4. Like, they have 4 guys under contract.
Right.
And Embiid, I'm saying Maxey is one of those guys, even though they had to work out his deal. Paul Reed and Ricky Council.
And I'm also building it top down. Like, let's say, for example, Paul George doesn't end up coming here, and LeBron stays in L.A., and Jimmy Butler doesn't get moved out of Miami, and the next thing you know, you've got someone who's a max contract player to use that slot, but they don't fit as well as you planned on them to. And I would not want Daryl Morey to have gone out and gotten role players for a potential player to come in here and be part of a big 3, and then they don't fit anymore. So you're almost handcuffed to wait for that max contract spot to be filled.
Oh, absolutely. And that kind of sucks, and that's That goes back to the J.J. Redick thing a few years ago. You were waiting to see who the Sixers would acquire. J.J. Redick didn't want to wait, so he signed a contract with the Pelicans to be close to his family in Brooklyn and stabbed you in the back.
Well, that's true. New Orleans has direct flights.
What else do we have on the text line, Brendan?
You want another Sixers or an Eagles one?
Give me the Eagles one.
Eagles, so that was Larry from Delco checking in, and he says the reason for the Eagles' success compared to the other three teams that they should do is their player development is that much better than the other three teams. From drafting a player and then developing him on.
It's absolutely true. I just went on a rant about the Flyers prospects and how they've never really become anything. The Phillies don't have prospects ever. They don't. Like I don't want to trade their top 5 prospects. Their top 5 prospects are always like 60 in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Right? Like, since when was the last time the Phillies had a prospect in like the top 10? I'm very curious. I'm guessing maybe Don Brown.
Well,
because you can be a prospect still in the big leagues.
Yeah, so Andrew Painter was a top 10.
Was he a top 10 before he got hurt? Okay.
Yeah, I believe he made it to 1.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Or was it pitching or was it overall?
He was definitely
At least
one
pitching. Okay.
He was up there overall, so he's been close. I don't think Stoddard, Bohm, were ever up
and then the
there,
Sixers,
but
we know. I mean, the Sixers don't have young talent. They trade them away every single time, which I don't disagree with that notion, but you at one point had a head coach in Doc Rivers who would rather have Furkan Korkmaz play point guard than giving Isaiah Joe a shot.
Right.
What I mean? Like that was horrible.
It's not even the organization. That was Doc Rivers.
That was Doc
That's
Rivers.
his thing. He still does it in Milwaukee.
And Nick Nurse was better with that this year.
Right.
I mean, Ricky Council again came out of nowhere to the point where they gave him a contract just so he could be eligible for the playoffs because he was still in a 2-way deal and you're not allowed to play in the playoffs on a 2-way contract. So they gave him a contract just so that he could play in the playoffs, and he never. I don't think he ended. Did he even log a minute?
Court,
I don't think he logged a minute, but you're starting to see that out of Nick Nurse. But it's been some time. To that texter's point, the Eagles are the only team that get young talent because you have to every single year in the draft, and your draft picks have to do something. But then in recent years, and look, ever since 2000, the offensive line isn't just good because they've signed guys to free agent contracts. Like Jason Kelsey was a draft pick. Jordan Mailata was a draft pick. Lane Johnson was a draft pick. You look at the defensive line. Brandon Graham was a draft pick. Fletcher Cox was a draft pick. Jalen Carter's a draft pick. They are very good at identifying young talent to the philosophy, as you pointed out, building through the trenches and growing them.
Yeah. So get the right players in the right scheme and develop them the right way. Sounds like a successful organization, huh?
Sounds like an easy plan to follow.
Well, easy to write.
All right, coming up next, the 8 o'clock hour, quick reset of the show. Where is the ticket for one Brendan Gunn? We have a Game 7 tonight. What's the cash out? We'll remind you of the ticket. We should all be rooting Oilers tonight. Also, today's headlines with Brendan Gunn and John Concade will be joining us from his ride home from Toronto at 8:10. It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today right here at 97.5 The Fanatic. I hope you have a safe trip into work today. If you're just tuning in, the voice is still shot.
It's starting to sound a little bit better.
I guess I think it sounds just the way it did at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know.
I don't think I sound much better. I was sick all last week. I started feeling better Friday. I went to a wedding on Friday with some of my best childhood friends. So clearly I acted like an idiot. Not really drinking. It was just the whole yelling and screaming and singing every song at the top of your lungs and then remembering that you work in radio and going, oh, no. Good thing the wedding was on a Friday. I have Saturday and Sunday to get better. And here we are. Still not.
I'll trade you in a second because I've been walking laps outside of the studio in between breaks. I threw out my back doing laundry. I wish I could tell you that I did it like playing softball this weekend, by the way. We swept.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought happened.
Yeah, no, they carried my dead corpse to a nice sweep while I was just sitting there drinking beer. So shout out PSD. But I was doing laundry, and it wasn't even like a big load of laundry. It was just moving like a T-shirt, and I threw out my back, and now I'm washed.
You're washed now. Welcome to almost being 30.
Dude, I'm scared to even continue to do laundry because I'm like, if I try and
literally
do this
just
again,
from doing laundry, it's unbelievable.
I know, dude. I'm a miserable person.
All right, so coming up at 8:05, we have today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. B. Gunn, give us the update. So, first off, take me into the life of Brendan Gunn when they won Game 6.
Oh, dude, I was hyped. Dude, so I'm sitting there watching that game. I didn't even turn it on, and then I'm checking my phone because, dude, I get anxious about this now. I'm, like, fully invested. It's terrible.
Well, to remind the people, in case you're just tuning in, Brendan Gunn has a futures ticket of, like, every championship, and he's already hit on UConn. He's already hit on Kansas City. He hit on Boston. Edmonton is in it. And then the Phillies World Series and Georgia Bulldogs to win the national title next year in football. A $1 bet would win $46,000. So obviously when Edmonton was down 3-0, we thought it was dead.
Yeah, they took the bet away. I didn't have a cash out.
You didn't have a cash out.
And it slowly came back after they won that Game 4. It went up to 88. Don't want it. Then it went up to 145 after they won Game 2. And now after they won, or not game, they won their second game, I should say, Game 5. And now after they won Game 6, it is up to $465.24. And that was jumping. That jumped from 145 to that with a single win, right? And so each goal they were scoring in that Game 6, it was just jumping up $100. Sitting there rubbing my hands like Mr. Smithers or whatever his name is. Dude, I was just happy as hell. And I'm not cashing out yet. In my mind, it's like, okay, I turned $1 into $465.
That's a nice turnout.
I would do that in a minute.
But I'm not doing that, dude. If they come back, no, not if they come back, they are going to come back and win this game tonight. Sergei Bobrovsky didn't even practice yesterday, dude. He's such a mental head case right now. He's all shaken up. We got the best player in the world, dude.
This one you can't cash out. If it was the opposite, if Edmonton was up 3-0 and the Panthers had won 3 straight,
I would cash out.
You would cash out because you're like, oh my God, are they really going to blow this? I might as well get the $465.
Yeah.
The fact that they've been down 3-0 and are coming back.
Dude, they win this game, that affords me the opportunity to sit there all summer and just think about it because the Phillies are going to be there. They're going to at least be in the NLCS. At the very least, I'm making a prediction right now. They're in the NLCS. And Georgia's going to be the first. In the first poll, they're going to be number 1.
Yes, they will be.
Wait, so let me ask you this. What is the dollar amount on this cash out that would make you take it? Because I feel like you say, oh, in this scenario, I might
changing.
Cash.
I
don't think you're cashing this out
bit.
regardless. Is there like if it gets to $15,000, are you cashing this out?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
$15,000. Yeah, you have.
Yeah, obviously.
For $1 bet.
Dude, if it gets to like, I told myself if it got to 1,000, I'd cash out. But dude, you think about it, dude. The Phillies and Georgia football, like. I'm convinced I have $46,000. Time just hasn't caught up with me yet.
By the way, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Let's go Edmonton tonight. We are rooting for you, B. Gunn. Unbelievable that they've come back, especially after I said the series should have just ended when it was 3-0. It worked out for one sport. I was correct about the basketball thing. Not so much about the hockey. Let's go Edmonton. All right, it's time now for today's headlines with Brendan Gunn.
Today's headlines with Connor Thomas.
All right, Brendan, what's up, man?
All right, so yesterday we had a great finish again, and there were at the PGA Travelers Championship, and someone was arrested, or a couple people were, and this time it didn't involve Scotty Scheffler, but he did go out there and win, so he's not traumatized from his arrest. Yesterday on the 18th hole, a group of 6 protesters decided they were going to run on the green, spray paint it, kick it up. Like, they destroyed the 18th green for climate change or whatever, but it was all over social media. There was just paint all over the green. I'm pretty sure there was like bumps and bruises all over it. A couple of guys had to like move their ball a little bit. So it was just a crazy thing. I don't know if you guys saw it at all.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah. Saw it live.
All right. I am pro climate change and trying to fix, or not climate change.
You're pro
Sorry.
climate change?
I'm pro trying to go up against climate change. The people that complain about like the bags and all that kind of stuff. Look, people are trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah, man, the turtles are getting killed by the straws.
Yeah, look, paper straws and all that stuff. Like, I'm all for it, man. Whatever we can do to try to make this world a better place, because once we're gone, there's still other people. Like, I want the generations of Salciunas that continue after Cooper, no pressure, to keep on going and to have a healthy world to live in, right?
Right.
It was sweltering this past weekend. I don't know if that had anything to do with climate change. Probably not. It was
above my pay grade.
It was a summer week in June. Like, it's hot. But here's the deal. Doing that just pisses me off. The people, there are some people that do the protests that to me are just dumb. So I told you about one last week. This is before this even happened. We saw something during the week on the air or whatever, and we just kind of talked about it off the air. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a group of, I will say, idiots that went to a grocery store to try to do a scene protesting milking cows. Right? Because unfortunately, cows get a raw deal and they go to these plants and they're getting milked all the time, right? So these idiots, once more, decide to go videotape themselves dumping out the gallons of milk on the floor. So number one, you're making some poor 14-year-old have to get a freaking mop and clean up. Like, this kid's making $8 an hour and he now has to mop up your mess because you went viral on TikTok because people were making fun of you, not so much for the cause. Hey, idiot. People are still buying milk. What do they then have to do when you're dumping out surpluses of milk?
They got to milk more cows.
They have to milk more cows. To me, you are stupid if you think that's going to make any bit of a difference. PETA is one of the dumbest organizations I can think of. Because here's the deal. People still eat meat. It breaks my heart knowing what some of the animals go through, right? But here's the deal. Should I just let the meat go to waste? That's even worse. It's going to still happen. Like, it's not going away.
I don't know, man.
Like, cows are still going to get killed and there will be steak. And what am I going to do? Let the steak go bad?
Yeah, exactly. And not for nothing, the protesters yesterday, you want to get eyes on you? You're running out at the Travelers Championship.
I'll tell you,
it's a great golf tournament, but
I'll tell you what, though. They got the most bang for their buck possible. They went into a playoff and they replayed the hole. Now they wiped off all the paint off the green.
Of course.
But you got the green twice, so that's one of the more successful ones.
Like, I don't want to say protests don't matter. They do, but there's some that I just think are dumb.
Yeah.
Like, me watching that last night or yesterday afternoon did not make me go, you know what? I'm gonna raise the air conditioning. I'm not gonna have it 68 in my house. I'm gonna put it up to 74 like somebody suggested you do. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I want to be comfortable with my life.
Exactly. All right, we're moving on. You mentioned that Jeremy Fowler report yesterday. Well, the Eagles added a running back that many people compare to another running back and that kind of impact. We've all discussed it, but Jeremy Fowler said he talked to people around the league, and they're saying it too. I'll play that, and then I want to hear your guys' reaction.
The feeling around the league, talking to several teams, that Saquon Barkley will make a major impact, maybe even like a Christian McCaffrey to 49ers type impact, because he's never had this sort of supporting cast, this kind of offensive line. Yeah, he's going to make Hurts' job a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
Yeah.
That's this. Welcome to the party, Jeremy. I said that the day he didn't even sign Saquon yet. It was legal tampering period. And I remember talking to Tom Alvord because he was producing the show. I was doing middays at the time. And I was like, do you know how much easier this makes Jalen Hurts' life? Which is why my immediate response was no excuses for Jalen Hurts this year.
Yeah, makes total sense.
There are none.
Also, the comparison to Christian McCaffrey is a perfect one. Like, they're not the exact same player, but they're similar enough.
Yeah, it's just nice to hear people around the league, like insiders, are saying the same kind of
Does
thing.
anyone really think that Brock Purdy's all that good?
No.
Like, look, he made the throws last year. He's got to throw the football. Like, it's kind of like what people said about Jalen Hurts 2 years ago. I think Jalen Hurts is still better than Brock Purdy.
I agree.
And so, Jalen Hurts, if if the air attack is not working, you have Saquon Barkley to utilize. If they're loading 8 up in the box to try to stop Saquon Barkley, that means you have one-on-one coverage with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. It makes Jalen Hurts' life so much easier.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, hopefully this guy's going to make the Flyers and everybody else in the organization's job easier. Connor brought up something. I'm going to replay it, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on it.
Matvei Michkov is coming, dude.
We got the Russian. We just heard from Danny Briere. We've heard from Keith Jones this offseason. They've stuck to the timeline the whole way, saying, hey, it's still a rebuild. We're still a ways away. We're looking at doing this the right way. I wonder how much that changes.
I don't want the Flyers to go out there and change the way they're going about them. Their process. I want them to continue with the rebuild. I don't want this to change the timeline at all. I mean, at the end of the day, the kid is going to be the best player on the team, but he's 19 years old. If you're going to change the way you're going about building your franchise, you committed to the rebuild. Why change now? Like, this just makes everything more worth it, right? Because this kid's going to be a generational talent when he develops. Right now, he's 19 years old. I don't want to go out there and have them try to compete. I want them to get more hopeful generational talents coming up. And the only way they're going to do that is staying committed to the rebuild.
It's probably the smart thing to do. I don't know if they're going to go out there and find the next splashy free agent this offseason.
No.
But they have the opportunity to start making some moves to acquire some players that might be a part of this moving forward. Like when they signed Bryce Harper. Trying to think. They eventually brought in JT Realmuto.
Right. Zach Wheeler.
Harper and Realmuto were the same year, right?
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah. They trade for Realmuto before they got Bryce Harper.
Right.
So that team wasn't going to win the World Series. They still had Brad Miller batting cleanup.
Hey,
Brad
had some ability. All right, leave him alone.
I think he had the second most home runs on the team that year. But my point is, they can go out there and get another move to couple with Michkov, just so Michkov's life is also a little bit easier. And how many times have you seen in the NBA? You draft Victor Wembanyama, but you go out there and you sign a veteran free agent that you probably spend a little bit more money to because you want to have him alongside Wemby. So I like that.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'm looking at, too, when I ask that question, it's not just this offseason, right? We talk about accelerating the timeline or changing the game plan. It could be, hey, does this make them good enough that at the trade deadline this year, it's not fire sale of older players, it's, hey, maybe we add somebody. It's not all in, but that would not have happened if Michkov was not going to be here. And now that he is, maybe it's a move here, a move there. It's not a total change in philosophy, but it is a bit of a change in approach.
Absolutely. All right, good job, Brendan. That is today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. We do it every single day at 8:05, except on Wednesdays when Adam Schefter joins us at 8 o'clock. But Connor Thomas has been sitting in the seat to my left. B. Gunn has been running today's headlines because he has been producing the show. The reason why we've been shuffling the deck a little bit is because John Concade has been away. John has been in Toronto, taking care of some family business, also doing some sightseeing. And I believe he's en route back to the United States of America. He might be in upstate New York at this point for all we know.
He could be anywhere.
And I would love to just get him on the air, but I know he's talking nonstop with B. Gunn. All right. Let's go to the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward. What's next? We'll hear him again tomorrow at 6 o'clock. John Concade joins us. Johnny, good morning.
Nice husky voice there.
Oh, dude, I sound like crap.
Very sultry.
You hear what I'm dealing with, Johnny?
You do. You sound, but yeah, I'm back in the States.
All right,
because
so we're in the
States. We cut our stay short one night. Yeah, we cut one night. We cut it short because Niagara Falls was a dump. A dump.
Really?
Like, wouldn't ever go back. If the only way I'd go back is if I was in a Liam Neeson movie and my family was being held hostage. And I had to drop the money there.
Well, hold on a second. Do people go to the falls to do stuff around the falls, or do you go to the falls to look at the falls? I'm honestly asking. I went to the falls when I was 8.
Well, it was a bait and switch like you've never seen. There was supposed to be like they said, nice little restaurants and shops, and you walk along it and everything like that. I mean, honestly, it felt like you were stepping over chalk body outlines. It really isn't something for the Department of Tourism, but Toronto rocks.
Maybe you're on the wrong side of the falls, man.
No, we were on the Canadian side, but the American side is not exactly supposed to be the best either.
Oh, all right.
So we have. I marked it off the list, but Toronto absolutely rocks. I mean, that is one both of you guys need to see Toronto. It is like, and spend some time there. It's awesome.
All right,
absolutely
well,
awesome.
that'll be added to the list for sure. Connor sent us a great text yesterday that honestly I am surprised too that you're not here today, dude. How excited are you that it's official? He's coming.
It is. Well, it appears to be. You know what? I'm going to really think it's official, though. And look, by NHL standards and everything, it's official. He's going to get released. The idea is, though, is that until I see his feet on American soil,
right,
I'm not going to trust. I'm not going to trust the people that really caused this young man a bunch of torment and have really they really destroyed his life. If no one knows the story of his father, they can go read about it. I'm so thrilled, so excited, and when Connor put that across, we can now say without saying any names, last week I was tipped, and I told all you that they thought something could happen this week before the draft. And I was thinking it would be this news, and I couldn't be more excited. And for Flyer fans, this is the biggest thing since Lindros, and it's not close. There has been nothing since Lindros that is this big a news for this city, this fan base, and hopefully it helps to, even more reignite the love of the orange and black.
Wow. Now, Johnny, I got to ask you, let's say you're sitting in the seat of a Danny Briere or Keith Jones, and you know that you have Michkov coming over. Let's live with that assumption. What does this change about your strategy, roster building, maybe throughout the season? What does this change about the rebuild timeline and how they should approach it?
Here's my guess, Connor, and I'm going to speak from just, the conversations that I've had around this situation and what I know of Keith Jones and his overall plan. My guess is this, and I think it's a pretty educated one. This will not change the plan for 24-25 one bit. This will just be that they get the benefit of having a honeymoon season with Matvei Michkov here as a member of the Philadelphia Flyers, getting some NHL experience and getting used to living in the States and all that transition out of the way. I don't believe it's going to change how they attack the draft on Friday night, and I'm thrilled that I'm going to get to be there in the Sphere on Friday night for it. I don't think it changes the plan, though. And I think if it did change the plan, Connor, I think it would be pretty stupid because they've done things right so far, and they're accumulating a lot of young talent. And right now you have 2 first-round picks, and there could be potential for a trade where you'd pick up a third. I think the smart thing is to continue to lay the foundation and just benefit from Michkov getting to have a honeymoon season here where everybody is just going to pack the house to get to see him, to put eyeballs on him and to get excited about him.
So, Johnny, you said something that I said earlier in the show, not to the extent that you did, but I talked about how, with all due respect to the Flyers organization, I've heard how every single prospect is going to be some incredible player, and they never really pan out. The Flyers are very good at pumping up their prospects, as are the Phillies. They're not the only team in the city that does it. What makes Michkov so much different than all the other prospects over the last couple of years? You said he's the first great one since Eric Lindros.
I would tell you this, is that going into last year's draft, if you just went on talent and you looked at European scouting sites, Canadian scouting sites, and American scouting sites, it was Connor Bedard, Michkov, 1-2. They were right there with each other, top of the draft. They were the 2 best talents in the draft. The problem was you didn't think you were going to have Michkov for 3 years. And some people thought he may never get over, that he may not ever get to come over because of what had happened with his father and again, a murder that occurred around his dad's death that they can't necessarily prove. But it is there were people that thought maybe he'd never leave. So they were afraid to take him. And so the Flyers did their homework. The Flyers have done such masterful work here. And I said it when Briere and Jones took over. It's the adults are in charge now. And there is a methodical approach, and that's why I think to Connor's earlier question, this guy Michkov, you're going to love him, Andrew, in the fact that not only does he have one of those, he has that little bit of foreign flair, but he's a tough son of a bitch. I mean, let's put it this way. He's a really strong. He's a strong. He plays a tough brand of hockey. You know how we always loved it that Allen Iverson drove the lane with reckless abandon.
Right.
Michkov is not a huge guy. He's a strong guy. I'd put him in there in the weight room with Jalen Hurts going side by side on their squats. He's a strong young man. But the thing is that he is going to be a guy who has no problem taking it right into the throat of the defense. He is going to have absolutely no problem where other guys sometimes are a little bit afraid. This is a guy who doesn't shy from contact. He isn't afraid. He's going to be a fan favorite. And I got to tell you, there are going to be so many Michkov jerseys sold, and we still don't know what the number will necessarily be, but it's going to be absolutely amazing for the entire city. I can't wait, and it's going to be fun to energize everybody. Oh, by the way, on your home of the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Damn right. That's a good plug right there, John. All right. We're going to let you go. I hope you have a safe drive home. I did say the 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I hope everybody have a safe trip into work. I hope you have a safe drive home. But I do want to leave you with this.
Wonderful. Yeah, what's that?
I offered a peace treaty to the best show ever on Friday. Without you.
You offered a peace treaty without me signing it?
Yes.
Me either, John. He
Without
went rogue.
me signing him?
I felt very comfortable
really
with
did?
it. I did. However.
Okay. Well, okay, what are the terms?
Oh, I'll tell you about it tomorrow because Tyrone responded with that he liked the peace treaty. But then he sent me a text 3 hours later. We tentatively have a peace treaty pending John Concade's ratification because you were off when the peace treaty was offered.
Well, tomorrow I will see if that comes about. I will have my attorneys look at it, review. Christina Breslin Roberts will need a copy of that, my attorney. She will need a copy of that over.
And it was
so
very Game of Thrones-esque that we drop our differences to fight the greater good, and then we can fight again down the road.
Okay, I like that. My wife was watching that Game of Thrones show last night, and I was very disturbed.
All right, well, don't say anything because I did not watch it. So pipe down there, Johnny.
Okay.
All right, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a safe trip home, okay? All right, see you tomorrow. There he is, John Concade on the Comcast Business Hotline, driving back from Toronto on this Fanatic Monday, presented by Pierce Phelps, Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning Contractors. Visit nopaybryant.com for flexible spending options on a new heating and cooling system. I'll tell you what the peace treaty was that I offered. Well, you kind of know about it because I said it on the air Friday.
Yeah, but I'd like to hear again.
But they want to see what John thinks before they completely sign. Maybe.
Wow.
All right, coming up next, we continue our discussions today. Connor posed a question before the show that I believed was an easy answer. But it's also so frustrating because I think everyone will agree, but we could all quickly be wrong. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll tell you what next. Kincade Salciunas, Connor, and for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic. laughing is because I just looked at some responses to our Phillies conversation today. I don't know if you've got a chance to look on the Fanatics Twitter account.
I have not.
So we posted the video of us talking about the Phillies taking 2 or 3 against the Diamondbacks. And how Sanchez was great yesterday. Castellanos having a great weekend. And then we talked about the Philadelphia Phillies fans that overreacted to one loss over the weekend, which happened.
100% happened.
It happened. One guy checks in. Oh, you guys now have a problem with the fans? One guy says, oh, as usual, the fans are the problem, not the media. Well, nobody should be a problem.
No.
My thing is I point out that a lot of you are hypocrites because if I point out, man, maybe Sirianni and Hurts should settle their differences before the season starts, a lot of people get upset hearing that are Eagles fans. But when the Phillies are 51-26, but they lose their 26th game of the season, and we basically say, relax, it's all good, people start freaking out. And so it's not that the media is the problem. It's not that fans are a problem. Nobody's a problem. The guys play. The players play, right?
Exactly.
Plain and simple. I just like to point out the hypocritical nature of some Philadelphia fans. We're all hypocrites. Everybody in life is a hypocrite. There is something that you have done in your life that has made you a hypocrite. Absolutely.
Yeah, it happens.
Everybody has.
And that's not even like the whole, this is a problem, the media is a problem, the fans are a problem. Like, no. I want to break it down from my perspective real quick because I don't have an issue with the fans, like anyone on Twitter or anyone who reaches out through the show that says like, oh, Connor's crazy, Connor's being too kind about this team. Like, I don't need you to agree with me.
Right.
I know I'm right. The reason I'm fighting tooth and nail with you on this is because I want you to enjoy what should be potentially the most enjoyable Philadelphia Phillies season you'll ever see. There is a chance that when this is all said and done, if things go the way that it seems they're capable of going, this team puts together the best baseball season we will ever see in our lives on this planet.
I put out that tweet 2 or 3 weeks ago about how this could go down as the greatest Phillies team in the history of the franchise, and I got pushback for it.
Yeah, and I'm not mad at people for not buying in on that. I'm not saying the fans are the problem, but I'm going to be sad if we get to the end of this, and I know that there's a portion of this fan base that did not enjoy it as much as they could. I'm just trying to help you enjoy this season. I'm trying to point out how good they are so that maybe somewhere in the doubts, you can find a way to suspend disbelief and enjoy what we have going on, which is a magical baseball season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well said. You can climb in 610-632-0975, text line or phone line. We still have a lot to get into today, so I forgot to add one of the things on the show sheet. I sent you a final score in an international.
Yeah, you got to explain to me what that competition was.
They're trying to expand the game of football to other countries.
Maybe what's the opposite of expand? Shrink? Maybe shrink the game a little bit.
Yeah, there was a under 20 USA versus, who was it? Slovenia or something. I forget who it was.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you some scores from this league because there are some countries that are much more prepared to play American football than others. That wasn't the worst score. Don't even read it.
It was USA versus Panama.
Okay, versus Panama. That wasn't even the worst score, dude. I'll tell you more coming up later on this hour. We still have a lot in store for you today. I saw a tweet about the most hostile fan bases in all of sports. We fare pretty well in that conversation.
Who would have guessed?
But let's get into something that you posed before the show. Pose the question to the audience that you posed to me.
So, it may be an easy question. I did preface this when I asked you. This might be a dumb-sounding question, but I think it's something important that leads the conversation. Are the Sixers in the clearly worst spot of any franchise in this city? Like when you look at the big four, the Sixers, Flyers, Phillies, Eagles, are the Sixers in the spot that seems the most destitute?
So I responded quickly with yes, but there's context behind it. Like the Flyers, there's only one direction right now.
Right.
It's up. Like they're not going to get worse. Like Michkov doesn't make them worse. No. There's only one plausible direction for the Flyers right now, and that's up. The Eagles are Super Bowl contenders this year despite what happened last year. The Phillies are World Series contenders despite what happened last year. The Sixers, I don't know what they are. Right. And their life also hangs in the balance of Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid could once again get better. Joel Embiid could also once again miss 40 games and then come playoff time not necessarily be fully healthy. And even though he balled out against the Knicks, the team wasn't necessarily gelling because they hadn't played with one another. That led to rebounding issues. That led to just effort, maybe communication, not knowing where guys will be on the floor when it came to some of those long rebounds. The Sixers are the most frustrating team, and what makes this question so frustrating, it is an easy answer for me, but that could flip like that.
Because in a sport that is most affected by an individual player, potentially, right? An individual in basketball can make a bigger impact than in any other of the major sports. I think even including quarterback. Just because if you have that great player in the postseason, they can carry you. The quarterback's not on the field half the time. The defense still has to be good. Baseball, it's an individual team sport. Hockey, you can get a hot goalie, but at the same time, you put 30 shots on that guy, and the next thing you know, what happens to the Panthers happens. But there's an argument that Joel Embiid is the best athlete in this city.
Yes.
In the sport where an individual can make the biggest impact. There's an argument that he's the best athlete in that sport on the planet at this given time.
When healthy.
And it's crazy to say that that team could possibly be in the worst spot.
But I don't think it is crazy. Like, they are.
They are, but...
Because I would say arrows for Eagles and Phillies are pointing, I guess, sideways, but their sideways is at the top. Flyers is pointing up. Is the Sixers arrow pointing up, sideways, or down? And if it's pointing sideways, it's not like it's pointing sideways in terms of they are in the conversation for the championship. They don't even have a roster right now.
Yeah, well, clearly the conversation at this point is not with the Phillies or the Eagles. We know where they are. They're much closer to championship contention than the other two. But the question is this. Would you rather have one spin of the roulette wheel to win $1 million? Or would you rather place an investment in, like, U.S. Treasury bonds and one day you'll have $1 million? Like, the Flyers are the safe investment because it seems they're going to take care of business in a slow rebuild and hopefully get to a place where they need to be. But I could bet it all on red or black and then go ahead and hope Joel Embiid is healthy one year, and next thing you know, the Sixers are a championship contender.
They'll always be considered a championship contender. I'll be the first to say it. They'll always be in consideration
as long as Embiid's here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think the Eagles and the Sixers are that far off. I just believe the Eagles as an organization are more likely to get their mistakes right and correct it, where I don't necessarily, everything my whole life, the Sixers, it just goes wrong. Like, if they go out and get Paul George or Jimmy Butler, I just feel like it's going to be wrong, even though I like those moves because they need a third star. My mind is just convinced that whatever the Sixers do is going to go wrong. But they could, if it goes right, they're right there in the championship picture. They're not out of it.
But that's why I say they can't be close to the Eagles because so much has to go right.
Yeah, I don't think you can compare them to
like the Eagles are. They have a championship roster right now. They had a championship roster last year despite the collapse. They had a championship roster the year before when they got to the Super Bowl. The Sixers have never had a championship roster. They haven't. They haven't been to one.
2019, I think you could say.
And
for half a season.
Right, and that team then blew up because it then changed.
No, I got you.
Sorry, I should say consistent championship roster.
There it is.
The Eagles have similar pieces this year that they did 2 years ago when they were in the Super Bowl. The Phillies have similar, if not all of the same pieces from the year they got to the championship 2 years ago. The Sixers have not been to one, so I can't say that they have had the pieces. I don't even know if Joel Embiid's a piece. I don't know. He hasn't been to one. He hasn't been out of the second round.
Technically fair. Now, we know, but, like, we can't know.
We can't know. You're right, but I can also tell you that right now they have 4 players, and a lot has to happen for them to put together a roster that appeases everything.
I'm saying, like, Embiid being a championship piece. Like, we know he has to be.
Look, I think that I think he is. It's just the fact that he hasn't done it yet. I don't know.
And he may never do it, but it doesn't mean he's not a like.
I know because people have said the same thing about Jason Tatum, and look, he won an NBA championship.
I refuse. So. Like, it was Allen Iverson not a championship piece? Like,
I got you.
He was,
but he at least got to a championship.
Yeah, it's so annoying because the people who say that aren't wrong. I don't have an argument against.
There is no argument. Anybody that's frustrated with the Sixers, down bad about the Sixers, there's no argument.
There isn't.
It's just whatever you feel about the Sixers, you're right. Either side.
They're Schrodinger's basketball team.
Seriously.
The cat could be dead, it could be alive.
If you are excited about the future of the Sixers, you're right. If you think the Sixers should rebuild, you're right.
The issue is a lot of people are indifferent now.
Right. And that's, once apathy sets in, that's a problem. All right, coming up next, I got to tell you about the wild scores. They're trying to grow the game of football. And I think Connor's right. Instead of trying to grow the game of American football, it should probably just stay to where we're at right now. I'm going to give you some scores coming up next. It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor for John, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, around the bases with Andrew Salciunas on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Phillies take Kincade and Salciunas. 97.5 The Fanatic. John out today. He's back at it tomorrow. Connor in for John today. Brennan Gunn producing the show. All right, so, Brennan, I sent this to Connor yesterday. So I want to run through this with you as well. So they're obviously trying to expand the sport of football. That's why we're seeing the NFL play in Brazil, right? Play in London, play in Germany, play in Mexico. We've seen that more and more as the years have been going on. So they're also trying to expand the game by getting more players in other countries. So there's an International Federation of American Football. The International of American Football, and what they're trying to do is almost do like world leagues. So if you ever watched, I know I'm different because of my Lithuanian ties. There's like the under 16 European teams.
Right.
There's like under 16 United States teams.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it's, I don't really know how to explain it.
If you follow soccer, it's very similar. Like, you put together a national team. They don't play like the Olympics or anything.
Right.
You just have like a U16 national team. The same thing, baseball. If you ever played or heard of like Team USA baseball.
Patrick Mahomes played for Team USA baseball, I think, right?
Yeah, probably.
I think he was a pitcher for Team USA baseball.
Guy's a monster.
And that's when he was 16 years old, right? So they just put together these rosters. Sometimes it's the best of the best, sometimes not, because there's some kids that would rather just focus on their individual workouts or play for whatever Legion Ball or whatever. So there's an International American Football League. They're trying to grow the game. And so there's an under 20 World Championship that is being taken place. And I guess I'm going to guess we're in the early stages.
I sure hope so.
I don't think this is necessarily the Final Four or something like that. Because Team USA played yesterday. And they played Panama. I sent you the score, so you know it. Brendan, would you like to take a guess
I want to hear
what the final score was?
70-4-0. Like, there's.
You're not far off. It was 86-12. Same rules.
Now, how the hell did we give up 12 points to Panama?
That's what a lot of people responded with, and they're probably accurate.
Unbelievable.
Now, that wasn't the worst one. Canada, they play football. It's the Canadian Football League. It's different rules, but
it's the same.
They know how to throw a
essentially.
football, catch a football. Yeah. They know how to block. They know pass protection. They know how to protect for the run. It's not like Arena Football League. You have to be set to the line of scrimmage. They played Brazil. Look, Brazil's going to wreck us in soccer. Not football.
Not football, yes.
Want to guess what the score of that one was?
Probably a little closer, like 50. It's worse, you said. This is worse than the other one?
Worse than 86-12. Did you see the final score?
The differential or the total point score? Like, are they in the 90s? Like, that would be ridiculous.
100-0 was the final score in the sport of football.
Dude, America's losing it. We're getting overtaken. Our 20 and under team can't even be the best, the scoring team there.
I think our under 20 team beats the brakes.
We're in
off
trouble.
Canada.
I think so. I think as well. But yes,
wait, who is that Canada played?
Brazil.
Yeah, you cook them.
So remember, in the Olympics this year, there's going to be flag football, and I don't know how many NFL. I don't think any NFL players are participating, but I'm going to guess that even whatever college athletes are probably better than some of the other countries. I don't think they're ready for flag, even though it's just flag football. I just don't think they're ready yet.
Could you play quarterback on the Olympic flag football team?
No.
If all the other players were NFL players.
Oh, Tyreek Hill? Yeah, I could lob one up.
I was going to say,
Hill.
you could probably win a gold medal as a quarterback.
Yeah, it's not like I'm getting.
You think you could get Tyreek Hill the ball?
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm not throwing it 90 yards downfield. I just have to throw a 5-yard slant route. He's to beat the guy off the line of scrimmage, which he's going to beat the guy from Panama off the line of scrimmage, and then I just have to hit him.
We're lucky we're not seeing Canada in that situation.
It's not like I'm not going to pass rush. It's flag football. Don't they have to count to 5 seconds or something? I don't know.
5 Mississippi. Duh.
Yeah, so I can get the ball to Tyreek Hill when he beats the guy off the line of scrimmage. But so they're trying to grow the game, and I respect that. I saw a highlight, and I use the term highlight, loosely, of the Canada and Brazil game. The quarterback from Brazil was in shotgun, like 7 yards off the line of scrimmage. They could not stop the Canadian pass rush that basically they brought in the long snapper to hike the football because they wanted to give the quarterback more time. And even so, the quarterback had no, like, I don't know. Sometimes there's no point.
You know what's so funny? Like all these smaller countries we're talking about, their sports radio shows laughing at our soccer team just like we're laughing at their football team.
Right. But, like, at least Americans know how to play soccer. Like, clearly Brazil does not know how to play football if they lost 100 to nothing.
No, that's pathetic.
100 to nothing. That's that IMG Academy and what was that fake
Bishop Sycamore?
Yeah, like
Bishop
that
Sycamore.
fake school. Like that's what that was. It's
bad.
kind of embarrassing.
How does that grow the game? Because if I played on one of those other
out,
teams, you know what I'm not doing is playing football anymore.
I'm walking home.
Now, hold on a second, real quick. Keith says Canada is back-to-back champions. What's up, Keith?
Hey, listen, couple things. Number one, if last year was a rebuild, I'm on board because that was the best Flyers season probably in the last 5.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's clear that Briere and Jones know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Now, you guys are knocking this under 20 thing. I happened to watch the CFL last night on CBS streaming, and Canada's under 20 team are the 2-time world champions. They're the defending world champions, and they are favored to win their 3rd in a row. That tournament is being played up in Edmonton.
That's amazing. Now, my guess is nobody from Georgia is on the under 20. Like the freshman at Georgia is not playing for the under 20 national team.
Yeah.
No, they actually explained in Canada, what they do. And Canada is so much larger than the United States, but they do what what the Olympics do here for the U.S. Olympic team. They have various sites in Canada where they send out their national scouts to look at the kids play. They whittle them down to 10, 15 kids per site. They invite the top 100, and out of the top 100, they pick 53. But they are really good.
All right. But they beat the doors off Brazil. Brazil is clearly not very good. Thanks for the call, Keith. We appreciate it, man. All right, coming up next, we reset the entire show in the 9 o'clock hour. Hey, shame on this guy's watching CFL stuff in the middle.
I know. That's a true sportsman.
I appreciate
What's
that.
your excuse?
All right, we reset the entire show coming up next. I told you that in the 9 o'clock hour, I found a list of the most hostile fan bases. And we did pretty well in that one. I also have to tell you a story about the Phillies game yesterday that confused the hell out of me. I'll explain. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor and for John today. 2 on Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today. John back tomorrow. It is a Fanatic Monday presented by Pierce Phelps Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning Contractors. Visit nopaybryant.com for flexible spending options on a new heating and cooling system. Going to reset the entire show. Coming up in a little bit, I'm going to tell you about an experience I had at the Phillies game yesterday that led me scratching my head.
Okay, I'm excited for this.
Like, total. I didn't tell you this on purpose. Completely confused. Also want to let you know about the Fanatic Deal of the Week. This is an awesome one. We've had a couple of brewery Fanatic Deals of the Week now. Like this, you shouldn't even think about it. Just buy it, okay? Get $50 to 8 and Sand Brewing Company, which is tremendous, by the way. My brother-in-law is a big 8 and Sand fan, so anytime I go to his house, they're in the fridge. They're delicious.
I haven't had it.
This
might be a great time.
And they're in Woodbury, so it's not like you have to drive. I mean, you're living in the city, but you don't have to drive all that far. I could. Get $50 to 8 and Sand Brewing Company for just $25. It's located in Woodbury, New Jersey. 8 and Sand Beer Company features 20 taps at their 40-foot bar, a must-stop for all who love breweries and craft beer. Get this exclusive offer while supplies last at 975thefanatic.com/deals. Again, I've had 8 and Sand multiple times. I've never been to the brewery itself, I will tell you that. But very good beer. $25 gets you $50. That's a steal.
Yeah, no, literally. That is a steal.
And in the craft beer game, what, $8 a beer probably? So you're basically getting 3 free beers?
Maybe more, depending if you like a lighter one. You might be able to get it for like $6.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's no-brainer.
Well, check out the Fanatic Deal of the Week on the website, 975thefanatic.com/deals. Okay, so here's what we've been talking about today. B-Gun, let me know if we have any texts at the ready. You can text the show. You can also call in at 610-632-0975. We start off the show recapping the busy weekend. Phillies taking 2 of 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. There are still people concerned about this Phillies team. It might be a battle not worth fighting anymore, honestly. Like, if people are still feeling a certain type of way about this team and everybody that points out the strength of schedule, that's not changing anytime soon. They're about to play the Tigers, then the Marlins, then the underperforming Cubs. But think about it for a second. The underperforming Cubs. We could say the underperforming Phillies. We're not. We're saying the best record in baseball in terms of winning percentage. After the Cubs, they play the Braves, the underperforming Braves. Are you upset that the Braves aren't playing as well this year? Like, do you wish the Braves were playing better so that it would be more of a difficult series? Is that what people want? I don't think so. I think you'd rather have a 7-game lead over the Atlanta Braves. And then you play the Dodgers for 3 in Philadelphia, which is a great series. Guys, the Dodgers have the 4th easiest strength of schedule so far this year. Phillies, 2nd easiest. Is anybody putting out the schedule for the Dodgers? I don't really follow Dodgers fans, so my algorithm's not showing people complaining about the Dodgers' strength of schedule. I'm going to guess that they're going, look how good our baseball team is. They've fallen short in the playoffs the last 2 years. Like, choked. We want to talk about the Phillies choking against the D-backs. Imagine losing back-to-back years in the first round of the playoffs, which is what the Dodgers and Braves have both done. I don't see anybody talking about the strength of schedule for the Dodgers.
No, they're not. And you're right with the whole maybe it's not worth it to fight this battle anymore if you can't see how good this team is. But again, I'm not fighting this battle to prove this team is good. I'm fighting this battle so that the fan base and individual fans who don't believe in this team and can enjoy the season as much as they possibly can. I'm trying to help you. Help me help you. All right? I feel like I'm in I almost said Tobey Maguire. Why can I not think of the name of that movie? Oh, come on.
Spider-Man?
No.
What are you talking? Tobey Maguire.
I know what you're talking about,
the
but I
Tom
also
Cruise
don't
movie.
know.
It's Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, all that was coming to mind was Tobey Maguire. But help me help you. I'm just trying to help you enjoy the season as much as you can because we may not get another one like it.
No. And, people are still suspect of Nick Castellanos saying, wake me up when he does it in the playoffs, when he literally did it in the playoffs last year. He's the best player in the history of baseball during the NLDS last year. Didn't he literally set records?
Yeah, Reggie Jackson and him were the only guys to ever hit
So
that
for the people that say, let me see him do it in the playoffs first, he did do it in the playoffs. He was horrible in the NLCS, as was the entire baseball team. Christopher Sanchez, we talked about his extension. Very good move for the Phillies because if he ends up stinking, it's really not going to cost them all that much money. I don't think he's going to end up stinking. We've talked about the Sixers rumors today. The Sixers, there was a report from Mark Stein that the Sixers are looking for wing players that can shoot threes at a good clip, but also at high volume, which is something that Jimmy Butler does not do. Mark Stein mentioned Jimmy Butler by name, as well as Brandon Ingram and DeMar DeRozan, guys the Sixers probably won't be interested in. So who are those players that the Sixers then should be interested in? We've been asking that question as well. And overall excitement, Matvei Michkov. I know John said, and John's right, when he says until he sees him actually get onto American soil, he's still going to keep himself grounded. But it looks like he's coming to Philadelphia next year, and that's amazing. It's so cool that the Flyers are getting back on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. Would love to talk about that as well. 610-632-0975. And our Eagles topic to tie everything in together. The Eagles are the most winning organization in Philadelphia. It's been a great century. Started the century. We're almost a quarter of the way in. The Philadelphia Eagles have been the best team in Philadelphia since the turn of the century to 2000. What makes them so good that the other teams should try to mold or mirror when they are building their teams? And we've had some good answers today. You said the Eagles have stuck to a philosophy of quarterback, O-line, and D-line. They build it through the trenches. That's what they believe in, and it's worked. We haven't really seen that with the other three teams. I said the ability to move on right away. If they see a problem, they move on. They don't kick the can down the road like we've seen other teams do in this city. Would love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. What do we got in the text line, B-Gun?
Yeah, so we got one listener checking in saying if you're complaining about the strength of schedule, you're probably just an undercover Braves fan. But then we got Anthony from St. Pete checking in. He says, I don't have any complaints about this Phillies team, but baseball is strange. The Dodgers and the Braves were the two best teams the last 2 years, and they were eliminated early. He says, if I had to pick one complaint, though, can the Pache experiment just be over? Just bring Rojas back. Pache is not good enough. I know he's out of options, but just let him go at this point.
No,
you can't.
There's no reason to, right? I know what you're saying. Is Rojas the better baseball player than Christian Pache? Maybe. But one guy has options, one guy doesn't. You don't just throw away talent because it's not just, he's not good enough to play on this team, get rid of him. You know what happens? The team that initially drafted Christian Pache, that had him as one of their top prospects, actually I think he was number one in their organization, down there in Atlanta needs an outfielder. I'm not saying Pache is the difference between the Braves catching the Phillies and not, but you don't give more bullets to your opponent's gun. You don't just let guys go for no reason. Pache is a player that is valuable enough to be at the major league level. Is he an everyday player? No, but you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No, you see what you got out of him, and here's the deal. However long the experiment lasts, it is over. They're going to trade for an outfielder.
Right, exactly.
Like, we know that. Like, it doesn't matter what the experiment is. By the way, Johan Rojas update. Now up to 364 in AAA. Wow. Struck out 3 times yesterday, which absolutely probably shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's all right. He went 1 for 4, 3 Ks yesterday. The average dropped to 364. That's a good day. Good, another little good stretch for Johan Rojas. All right, what else do we have, B-Gun?
We got SD from Mullica Hill checking in. He says the Sixers are in the Bermuda Triangle. The arrow is constantly spinning. They're either going to come out of this with the championship or they're going to crash on the rocks.
I mean, that's most teams, right?
Yeah.
I think those are the only 2 ways you can go.
Yeah, well, like, look, if you could see chances dwindling for a team, they might find a way to rejuvenate. Like, the Boston Celtics kind of just, they traded everybody away and restarted. And look, it worked out for them. The day the Embiid thing is done, it's over. And it might be for a while.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unless they get a Wembanyama when it's their turn to
Do they
draft.
Make more of those? I think these might be one-on-one.
There might be more and more actually coming because everybody's just like growing. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, look, it might just end up crashing and burning at one point. But the question is, do you wait until it crashes and burns, or do you do it now? It's either way, it's going to crash and burn.
Well, here's what it is, right? This is, I think, a good analogy for where the Sixers are at. Imagine the Sixers are a car, and you're in the middle of the desert, and you've got a sign that says 60 miles to the nearest gas station. And you have 50 miles worth of gas left. The Sixers are in that spot. And some people, like you and I, are saying, screw it, we're going to try and make it to the gas station. We might end up 10 miles short, but we're going to try. And some people are saying, we don't have enough gas. I'm just going to sit here. Either way, we're probably all dead, but I'm going to ride this thing.
We're going to run out of gas and die?
Yeah. Well, it's a desert. It's hot out there.
I can walk 10 miles.
Okay, well, missing the point. Either way, we're all going to come up short, most likely. But you kind of have to still take the shot, right? At least in our book.
I think you have to take the shot because the alternative is starting over and looking for the players you already have.
Yeah.
And those players are Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. All right, you can text in, you can call in 610-632-0975. We'll get to some more texts coming up in a few minutes. But I got to tell you about something that happened at the Phillies game yesterday. So I need to know why. All right. So my lovely wife, Christy, got us tickets for yesterday's game. For the Father's Day. It was my Father's Day gift last Sunday. The Phillies did not play. She wants to turn this into a bit of a tradition. So I went to I didn't take him to the first Father's Day. He was too small. But I went to the bucket hat game, right? So 2 out of the 3 years of being a father, I went to the Father's Day game, even though they didn't necessarily happen on Father's Day. Okay. Yesterday was the Father's Appreciation game. So Christy wants to turn this into a thing. And I appreciate it. It's nice. It's a good time. Holden Cooper, he was eating the ice cream out of the helmet.
Oh, that's
it was
great. His first one?
First helmet ice cream cup, man.
You never forget your first.
I cleaned it. I kept it. It's at the house. So we didn't get there till the 5th inning because the game was at freaking 11:30 in the morning because of the stupid road. Anyone watch, by the way?
I was here
okay.
So I couldn't, but dude,
I saw
Roku
problems
TV.
everywhere. Yeah, it's stupid. And it was only Roku. It's not like they had a local broadcast for people on the TV. And this is coming from somebody that went to the game, and I'm still complaining about it. It's stupid. Way to grow your game. So the game's at 11:35. Cooper normally naps from 12 to 2. And she bought the tickets not knowing that it was 11:35. Because why would you expect that? If you don't follow the sport, you're not going, oh, is this the game that's at 11:30 in the morning?
No.
No, she's not thinking that.
Also, why was it? Was it just because it's Roku?
So originally it was a 1 o'clock game. They moved it up so that Roku had its own time slot.
That's so dumb.
It's so stupid. And oh, by the way, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, that's an 8:30 game. For them as the players. I'm not surprised the Phillies won yesterday, if I'm being honest with you.
I'm fine with that.
And I expected the under to hit. Put my money where my mouth was because these guys are they're not used to waking up that early to get to the ballpark. So I don't get there till the 5th inning. And as we walk in, I'm wearing the hat today. This was the hat that was given away yesterday.
Oh, that's a nice hat.
And Christy, again, she wants it to be kind of a thing. I don't have to buy you a gift. I can just get you Phillies tickets, and you're going to get something at the game because that's what they do on the Father's Day. The bucket hat. There's been those.
That's where the shirt, the
shirts.
victory shirt came from.
Yes, the Hawaiian shirts with the Phillies P on it. It's awesome. So we walk in, and because it was the 5th inning, they were no longer giving out the hats.
Oh.
And I didn't care. I was like, that's fine, babe. We're here. We're at the Phillies game. She was devastated. So you got to go get your hat. You got to go get your hat. You got to go get your hat. Meanwhile, back in my mind, I'm thinking I could just text John Brazier right now, and I could.
Oh,
is that it?
Big time.
Yeah, this is the hat. It's
Dude,
nice.
That hat's awesome.
Dude,
I'm on Christy's side. Go get that hat.
It's a really nice hat. It's comfortable. It's a nice, comfy trucker hat. It's actually a pretty freaking awesome hat.
I thought you bought that hat.
No.
It looks like a nice one.
No,
sometimes they're flimsy or whatnot.
Well,
that's a good one.
We did technically buy it because you buy the tickets.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, it was a
giveaway hat.
Giveaway. It's awesome. It's a great hat. So she goes, look, ask somebody. I'm like, I know where to go. You go to guest services. If you miss getting the giveaway, you go to guest services. So I go, why don't you find a spot in the shade for Cooper? Because we didn't want to put him out in the sun it was a freaking 100 degrees yesterday. So I'll go to guest service.
Kid doesn't tan yet?
No. Well, actually, he's getting it. Okay. He's got more of my complexion than hers. So I get to the guest service. Let me make this clear. I am not by any means complaining about the gentleman working at guest services. I'm questioning the rules. Because he said, I'm just following the rule. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm not ripping you. I'm only here because my wife is literally saying, go get the hat. It's breaking her heart that I don't have the hat. So I'm trying to be a good husband by missing the freaking game to get a hat. Guy goes, all right, I need to see your ticket. First off, my wife, the tickets were on her phone because, again, they were.
Well, you had to assume they were going to have to see your ticket.
Why? I'm in the building.
I was going to say, how else would he be there?
I'm in the building.
Maybe I don't know,
I know a spot, but it's he's not doing it as a 30-year-old.
Snuck in.
No, okay. If I did, award me with the hat. Like, be like, hey, man, good for you. So I'm already in the building. He needs me to show the ticket. I'm like, all right, sounds good. I got to call Christy. She's not answering because she's taking care of Cooper. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I'm missing the freaking game. The manager got ejected. I didn't see it happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was pissed off. And so I finally get the ticket. I show the guy. He goes, there's no barcode. Because you know how now it's just the reader?
Oh, yeah.
He goes, you don't have the barcode. I'm like, there is no barcode.
Yeah, well, all the tickets don't have barcodes.
Okay. According to him, that's not accurate.
Okay, well.
Which, again, I'm not ripping the man.
No, it's not his fault.
I just don't understand. It kind of really, the barcode thing, I didn't even need to throw that one in there. It was the fact that he asked me to show him my ticket per his policy. Again, not ripping him, per his policy. Because that's the biggest issue that I have with people. If a company has a policy, the company has the policy. Don't rip the person that's doing it.
Like they're doing their job.
I wasn't talking to John Middleton, right? You know what I mean? Like I was talking to a guy that sits behind guest service.
Next time you see Mr. Middleton, though, it'll be a conversation.
But if I'm already in the building, why do I need to show my ticket for something? Not to get to my seat, to get the giveaway hat.
I don't know, in case you snuck into the stadium or like
I didn't.
You know what? If you came back twice, they probably like scanned the ticket. If you go to guest services, I have to imagine.
You scan the ticket when you walk in
when I
anyway.
walked in.
No, I know, but like the customer,
they don't scan.
Even the giveaways, just like it's usually like an older gentleman
they don't
giving it out.
No,
after.
he got his giveaway.
If you go to guest services, it's probably first one free. If you go to guest services, they probably check your ticket there. And then if you try and come back to guest services, and be like, I didn't get my hat and go for a third one.
Fair enough.
Then they're probably like that. I know they don't scan it when they get through there.
All right, that's a good point. So maybe that's what it is. And I was just like, all right, whatever, man. I'm just sitting here like.
Here's the real issue with all of this, though. Honestly, this is where this conversation starts and ends. Show up to the game on time. Sorry. Am I wrong, Brendan?
Listen, man, he's a family man. He's got some stuff going on.
Know
would I be there on time?
Am I wrong?
Do I have to pull the card?
Oh, what?
Until you have a kid, you can't talk.
Okay,
I'll pull the card. I don't like pulling the card.
I have back problems. It's basically like having a kid.
That's nothing to no,
the same thing.
If you mix up the nap schedule, your life is freaking miserable, okay? So
I know you're right. It's just
this is one of those situations where I feel comfortable pulling the if you don't have a kid card, shut the hell up. I say that out of love.
Salciunas getting testy over
there. All right, because I want to be at the game on time. I want to be there at first pitch. I want to be there. I want to tailgate. I want to get drunk. I want to have fun at the game. But I can't nowadays because I got 2-year-old eating his ice cream helmet and it was
Sounds
freaking
like
awesome.
Salciunas is the one who needs the nap time right now. He's all fed up.
Absolutely. All right, coming up next, we continue our discussions today. I know we have more texts coming in, so we'll check out the text line. You can text or call 610-632-0975. Also, somebody put together, they did the research of the 50 most hostile fan bases in all of sports. We did pretty well. And we did better than what you expect. Because you're probably trying to think of 50 different areas. It's even simpler than that. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor and for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Salciunas is brought to you by The Bagster. It's a dumpster in a bag. You can get yours today at Home Depot and Lowe's. And for details, go to Bagster.com.
It is 9:28 on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. We got more texts coming up that Brendan Gunn will throw our way from today's discussions. You can text in at 610-632-0975. We have the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3 and also our crossover with one Bob Cooney still to come on the show. But I saw something yesterday. Now, it was posted on June 21st, but I just saw it yesterday. The top 50 most hostile fan bases in all sports. We did pretty well.
Now, when you say we did pretty well, what sense are we looking at? Like there's no Philadelphia team on here, or we're all top 10?
Oh, no, we're here, baby.
Okay, that's what I figured you meant.
Now, I said it before the break that it's not just as simple as Philadelphia, Dallas, Boston. No, it's individual teams of all sports, professional, as well as college.
The college makes it interesting there.
Yeah. So coming in at number 1, the most hostile fan base is the Raiders. Now, I don't know if they still have it as much in Vegas, but yes, the Oakland Raiders going into that building is probably a scary place to be. It's probably one of those places where you don't want to necessarily bring your young kids. You don't want to go if you're a rival team because you could literally get stabbed. Maybe not as much in Vegas. I don't know. I haven't really been following.
We went.
Yeah, you went.
Yeah,
That's
so
right. What was it like?
Had no issues.
Okay.
Not at all.
Now,
Everyone was
the
great.
Oakland Raiders fan base, a lot different, but I'm guessing they still are at number 1. Maybe pedigree puts them at number 1.
I can understand. I can respect that move.
Now, I just want to say, when I see colleges, it doesn't say football or basketball or anything specific. I'm just going to guess it's football.
Okay.
For the majority of these. Tennessee comes in at number 2.
That's weird.
I haven't really followed the Volunteers and their fans if they're hostile. So somebody might be able to let us know that they are a very hostile fan base.
They are. It hasn't done any good against Georgia or Alabama or any of those other SEC teams because Tennessee stinks.
Right. Now they stink, but it hasn't really gone well for us either, if we're being honest.
Yeah, well, might be fair.
Right?
I don't know enough about Tennessee football.
So the Philadelphia Eagles fan base comes in at number 3.
Let's go.
As third most hostile fan base
Hell yeah.
in all of sports. Coming in at number 4 is Ohio State football. I'm going to, again, a guess, football.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because they're always good, but they're
always annoying.
They're always they're annoying, but they're not Georgia, they're not Alabama, so that must feel a certain type of way. The Cleveland Browns are 5th. I think the Browns are great. The dog pound's great. They got weird with the Deshaun Watson stuff.
Yeah, I don't think of that as hostile. I think them as passionate, but
look.
No, I mean, even when they stunk back in the day, they were
good.
hostile to the TO game, if you remember that.
I give Cleveland I give Cleveland football fans a lot of credit. Basketball, not so much. Like, congratulations, you had LeBron James for the longest time. Coming in number 6, this one I don't really get. I can understand why they may have put this because there was literally a brawl between players and fans, but the Detroit Pistons coming in number 6. But what is there to been hostile about in recent years? Like, they just stink.
They'll punch you in the face.
They will fight.
In recent
they will
years,
fight you.
Like, when the Sixers were going through the process, was that a hostile fan base? Like, no.
No, it was an empty building.
Right.
I don't know. Detroit is always kind of one of those rough tumble towns. Like,
but I would think the Lions would be there.
Yeah,
like kind of like Cleveland. To your point, Brendan Gunn. Even when they were bad, like they were packing that place.
I
in
think
Detroit.
that's reputation because you had the bad boy Pistons, and then you had also the Malice at the Palace following that. I think that is just built on reputation that we're going to fight you.
I guess, but the Lions aren't even on this. Which I'm surprised
because
by.
Those are things associated with the Pistons, not just Detroit. They have like 2 standalone parts in their history that are just like, we are going to fight you.
LSU comes in at 7. Man U comes in at 8. There should probably be like more European soccer fan
Yeah,
base is
right.
on this. It's the only one. I don't know like where they came up with the premise. Like I know they do social media stuff. They do in the building what people are saying on the news, the local media, all that kind of stuff. So we're to blame. But Man U comes in at 8. Georgia football comes in at 9. The Flyers coming at 10. What? The Flyers fan base is the 10th most hostile fan bases in all sports according to this list. The U comes in at 11. The Phillies are at 12. The Niners are at 13. I'm surprised San Francisco is not higher for multiple reasons. People have been murdered at their stadium, but also the fact that they've come short so many times.
Right.
Like, I would imagine
Don't they have a longer Super Bowl drought than the Cowboys?
yeah.
Winning,
Yeah,
not appearing.
winning because
Yeah.
they lost.
But like
They lost to Baltimore that year.
They lost to Kansas City. They lost to who else? They've lost like 3 recently.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised they're not higher. Arizona. The Razorbacks are at 14. The Gators are at 15, and then the Sixers are at 16. So in the top
hell yeah.
in the top 16. 4 of our teams are considered the most hostile fan bases in all of sports.
That's right. Come
In the
get
top-
some.
And the
in the
one
top
that's
16.
made the most news here in recent years is the one not on the list. Red October is not.
No,
in
I
that
just said they're
top-
12.
Oh, did you?
the Phillies are 12.
Yeah, Phillies are 12.
All 4 there?
All 4 in the top
Oh
16.
my God!
Welcome
I
to the
just totally
show.
misheard everything.
So, I mean, I think the Eagles, it's fair for the Eagles to be number 1. I'm surprised the Sixers are the 4th out of the 4.
Yeah.
Because hostile to me is not necessarily just when you have to come in here, it's hard to play. It's also how we react to our teams. And the Sixers, it's been hostile just on the radio.
Yeah, I think it's like very arbitrary on where the teams are ranked. The fact that you've got 4 in the top 16 is proof positive.
Right.
That's all I care about. I don't
Right.
care if the Phils are 12 and the Sixers are 16 or vice versa.
I'm getting the sign like that little Boston kid, like 16 championships in 22 years.
Did you see his updated
4
one?
most hostile crowds. Yeah, I saw it. What a loser.
He's now like in his 20s, and he updated the photo.
Yeah.
With the more, it's
Yeah, but I'm getting the sign, dude. We got the 4 out of the top 16 most hostile.
we've made it.
That's what I
We've made it. Congratulations. All right, what do we have on the text line, B-Gun?
Yeah, I mean, so back to that hostile. There's a little bit of hostility to one of our teams, and it's negative about the Sixers, I guess. Austin's checking in. The Sixers are entering a rebuild with this many players needed to fill out a roster. So do we really believe we are just a few pieces away? Sell the farm, rebuild? I just don't know if we're winning a chip with this current setup, with the focal point being Embiid. When he's hurt, our game plan falls apart. I can see that, and then he adds a second part, which is where he loses me. None of the free agents even move the needle for me. Are we really a PG, a Jimmy Butler, or a LeBron away from winning a championship?
Well, the LeBron part.
Exactly.
Yes, every team in basketball is probably a LeBron away from competing.
Who sent this text in?
Austin.
Austin, I appreciate you texting in. Here's the reason why you are still a contender at this very moment, despite only having 4 guys technically under contract. The Sixers have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And I know he said in his text that Embiid's injuries are always a thing. You're right, and I can't dispute that. Like that's completely true. But you know how good he is when he's healthy, and you just have to hope that at some point it clicks come playoff time. We thought maybe this year would be the year that he got hurt early enough. Like, think about how crazy we are in this city. We thought that Joel Embiid got hurt early enough that it would be good come playoff time.
Right.
We ended up finding out he probably came back a little bit too soon because he needed some more time, or he just tweaked something else. Like, who knows what he ended up tweaking. But clearly he was hurt during that Knicks series, but he balled out. He was great.
Yeah.
The Sixers are in a great position because of not only cap space, but cap space with Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. That's a point that I don't think people are really grasping. Even sometimes our conversations with John, I don't think he grasps the fact that they do have this cap space, but they already have 2 pieces that teams that have this cap space don't have. Like the Detroit Pistons have this cap space. Aside from Cade Cunningham, they have absolutely nothing. And Cade Cunningham, nobody has penciled him in as stud.
Yeah.
Like right now, Tyrese Maxey has done more than Cade Cunningham.
100%.
There are a ton of teams that have great cap space like the Sixers, but that's because they're coming out of a tank or they're starting a rebuild.
Yeah.
The Sixers have this cap space with 2 bona fide, 1 superstar and 1 all-star.
Sure. Absolutely right. But then you know what else they also have? They have $1 million check and they're walking into a supermarket that has nothing in it. What are you going to buy at a store that isn't selling anything? That's the biggest issue. It's not that they don't have the opportunity. They do. But you're going to have to get really creative because if it's
And Daryl Morey has been.
Right. I'm not knocking Daryl Morey, but I'm saying this is why his job is so difficult. You can have all the cap space you want. If there are no players that are going to get you there that are available, the cap space does not matter. Then you've got to sign and trade. You got to find a way to move those draft picks. You got to find a way to fill out that roster before you start doing. And that's what makes it so tough. It's not that they don't have the assets. It's that you don't have anyone to use them on.
Right. Well, unless they do, look, the Paul George thing, who knows, man? We'll see how this goes.
Right.
I think a lot of this is agent talk, and they're trying to get more money out of one of the two teams, and we'll see what happens. And then there are going to be players available. There's already talks of signing and trading with Tobias Harris, so you're going to get assets back for that. Like, there's going to be creative trades made by Daryl Morey. I fully expect
I believe
it.
so, too. I'm just saying, like, that's significantly tougher than, hey, we have cap space and KD, LeBron, and someone else out there are free agents. Like, Giannis is a free agent. We could just go ahead and throw money at him and get this.
Right.
Like,
I got you.
It's going to have to be more complicated. One thing I will say, I cannot wait for the day. If they do indeed do a sign and trade of Tobias Harris, we will get the notification that, like, the Sixers have signed him. I cannot wait to see Andrew Salciunas' reaction to the Tobias Harris re-signing with the Sixers.
He's not re-signed to play. It's never happening.
I can't wait.
Ever
You're
happening.
still going to read that and have a visceral reaction, and I cannot wait for it.
Speaking of the Philadelphia 76ers, want to let you know about something awesome that we have coming up Wednesday night. The NBA draft is Wednesday, all of a sudden. And 97.5 The Fanatic brings you live coverage from the 76ers facility in Camden. This is awesome. D. Lynam and Tyrone Johnson will be on the air starting at 8. So Tyrone's going to finish the best show ever at 6 o'clock. Make his way down to the facility in Camden and do the show with D with round-by-round coverage as well as insight and perspective on what the Sixers strategy will be for the draft and free agency. It's all here on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. So make sure you're checking that out Wednesday night. I saw more and more rumors over the weekend about players the Sixers might be interested in with the 16th overall pick. I've just been thinking that they're going to trade it. I still think that they're going to trade it. But there's legitimate talks that they might still draft a player at 16.
Well, it could also be a draft and trade.
Could be.
It could be you pick a player and then they become a great player and you trade him for Zaire Smith. You never know. Well, a lot of things could happen.
A lot of things could happen.
No, but the draft is very interesting because it forces movement, and that's kind of what I think this fan base has been waiting for.
And we're all waiting for it with the Sixers. Absolutely. Right. All right, so make sure you check that out Wednesday night. Coming up next, we have the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3. Connor's obviously been in for John the last couple of days last week, and today John will be back in studio tomorrow, so we can't wait to see Johnny of the K. And then we have our crossover with Bob Cooney after the Key 3. All coming your way next. Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Bob Cooney.
Kincade Salciunas. We got our crossover with Bob Cooney come up in a few minutes, but it's time now for the Key 3.
Now, the Kincade Salciunas Key 3. Today's best.
Players on the field itself can get better. They can acquire more talent come trade deadline time. But bottom line is you have a great baseball team with the opportunity to get better. And that's something that you need to be excited about. And the weird negative reaction toward individual players, toward individual games, I just don't get it, man. I really don't. But the Phillies, I would say, yes, good weekend. They didn't sweep the Diamondbacks, so you can't say great weekend. Well, but a good weekend where they scored 12 runs in Game 2. And then yesterday you have a dominant performance out of Christopher Sanchez, who part of your weekend news left and right gets a 4-year extension by the Phillies.
And that's why I'd call it a great weekend, because it'd be a good weekend based on what just happened on the field. But the Christopher Sanchez extension makes it a great weekend. That is such an awesome deal for the Phillies and for Christopher Sanchez. Young players in baseball, when you have to go through pre-arb and arbitration, you're not getting paid nearly what you're worth. And that's a sad thing for those players. I'm not crying for Major League Baseball players who are going to make millions upon millions of dollars, but it sucks if you can't get paid. And to pay a young player like that helps them, but it also helps the organization that you're paying a guy that's been unbelievable, that's near the top of the National League ERA leaderboard, $22 million over the next 4 years. That's an absolute steal. That is what we look at when the Atlanta Braves do it, and they sign these guys ahead of term, and
we
buy out
celebrate with, or not celebrate. We complain that the Braves do and the Phillies don't do it.
Well, now the Phillies are doing it.
Matvei Michkov is coming, dude.
We got the Russian.
They said they weren't going to make this push for the playoffs, make these stupid trades to try to get to a playoff spot. They were going to stick by what they believed in, and they did that, and they ended up not making the playoffs, and it was disappointing for an extended period of time. But you understood why they didn't make the playoffs. You understood that wasn't the goal this year, and now all of a sudden you have your top player coming across to the United States, and he's going to be wearing the orange and black next year, and that to me is exciting, and it makes me wonder how quickly people jump on board with the orange and black this upcoming season on a consistent basis. Because you know how people get, right? That building started to get a little bit more quiet the last couple of years, and I appreciated it. I respected Flyers fans for doing it, because Flyers fans were very tight with their season tickets and did not want to not go to games, and they finally had enough with the Chuck Fletcher regime. Dude, Michkov is going to fill out the stadium.
For Flyer fans, this is the biggest thing since Lindros, and it's not close. There has been nothing since Lindros that is this big of news.
What makes the Eagles such a successful organization that maybe these other teams are going to try to strive for? Because let's face it, if you're Keith Jones and Danny Briere, if you're Daryl Morey, even if you're Dave Dombrowski, who's one of the more successful president of baseball operations in the league at multiple stops now, they should probably all talk to Howard. They should probably all talk to Jeffrey Lurie. I know John Middleton and Jeffrey Lurie have grown into a deeper friendship, and a lot of it is also friendly rivalry because they both are fighting for the top team in the city. They should probably take note of what the Eagles do.
The first thing that comes to mind is ownership, and I immediately throw that out because I say John Middleton is a really, really good owner. I say that the Sixers ownership, at least,
try.
Yeah, they try.
I don't like the people that rip Josh Harris. He signs every paycheck.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
time.
They open up the checkbook. They have no issue with going out there and trying to make moves to improve the team. They just haven't made the right move. So it's not for lack of trying. And we know the situation with the Flyers. We hope that has changed, and we've already seen this new regime with Briere and Keith Jones have more success in working alongside the ownership. So I don't think it's ownership. The Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in this city, regardless of year or personnel, coach, anything. They have a definitive strategy for building the roster that they always use.
Maybe today's the day people start giving him credit.
Yeah, don't hold your breath, buddy.
Nick Castellanos, this 5-game stretch that he's on right now. Oh, sorry, 6-game stretch. The 6-game stretch that he's on. He's batting .478, 11 for 23. 4 doubles, 2 home runs, 8 ribbies, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. That's kind of typical for him.
Right.
But 8 RBI, 2 home run, 4 doubles. So out of his 11 for 23, out of his 11 hits, 6 of them are extra. Maybe today's the day that he gets some credit.
See, that's what I'm saying. This is where this can't get lost. It's not us telling you Nick Castellanos has had a great year. I think people hear us saying this and like asking why he's not getting more credit, and they hear, oh, Castellanos has had a great year. There's no reason to be concerned. He's doing awesome. That's not what we're saying. All it is when you get one of these stretches, it is unfair to the player to not give him as much compliments and confidence as you give him grief when he goes through those bad stretches.
That's the Key 3. The Kincade Salciunas Key 3. John, not in today. He's back at it tomorrow. Connor filling in for John. But Bob Cooney's here. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning, boys. What's happening?
Matvei Michkov's happening.
Matvei Michkov!
See your hat? You're all flyered up.
I did. I got the Flyers hat out of I have 2 huge bins under my bed. And they're both filled with hats.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, today I guess I got to go Flyers. So, yeah, that's pretty cool news. I like that.
All of a sudden, like next year, people were excited for what was going on last season.
Yeah, I say I like it, and people are like, no kidding, you got a good player count. No, I like it that the organization is kind of following the path that they laid out with Briere and Jones, where you could have said, what are you talking about? They're doing the same thing all over again, bringing old players back and blah, blah, blah. But these guys seem to have a plan, and now it seems to be coming kind of to fruition.
Yeah, we talked about it with one of our questions today was about what do the Eagles do so well that makes them a winning organization? And I think a lot of it boiled down to discipline and sticking to what works. It's not the easiest thing to do the not sexy move every time, but the Flyers are kind of coming around on that too, which is nice.
Yeah, it is cool. And we're going to have Jordan Hall on today at 12 from NBC Sports Philadelphia to talk about it a little bit. Amy Fadul's with us all 4 hours today, so we're going to have a lot of fun.
All right. What was the best thing about your weekend, Bobby?
My niece's graduation party from LaSalle University.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was good to see the family and stuff, and she had a tough time. You know, my brother passed when she was a junior in high school, in college rather. So proud of her. So everything was good. It was a good weekend. And he did a Crohn's walk yesterday.
Nice.
Over at Lincoln Financial Field.
Did you score a touchdown?
No, we were allowed to walk around the field. We weren't allowed on the grass. So we did that. But, you know, it's not painted up or anything, so it's just a big field of grass.
Oh, then why couldn't you be on the grass if it's not
I
painted
don't know.
up? Like, what are you
don't want to take divots.
They let Temple play on that field on Saturdays the day before the Eagles play on Sunday.
I hate that.
Like, it's
God,
so dumb.
I hate that,
You're not allowed to walk on the field in freaking June, but they allow Temple football to just destroy the field the day before a football game. This is coming from a Temple alum. Like, it's dumb.
Well, it's funny. We were talking about scheduling yesterday because we're going over to the Crohn's Walk, and I forgot. Somebody reminded me on Friday night. They're like, you got a Crohn's Walk same time the Phillies are just about starting. So we go down there, and I thought it was going to be a cluster mess, but it wasn't. They had special parking for the walk, so it worked out perfectly. Yeah.
That's good. All right, Bobby. Well, we will be listening today.
See you, Bobby. Oh, that's right. I got things to say.
Connor, let's go.
I was focused on the
This is your job.
And now Bob's yelling at me. Remember to support life-saving cancer research. Join me and our generous partner, the Davis CPA Group, in making a donation to the American Association for Cancer Research today at 975thefanatic.com/AACR, because cancer research saves lives.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Monday. John Concade will be back in the saddle tomorrow for a whole 2 days before he leaves us again. But John will be back tomorrow, so Connor will be producing the show. Brendan, great job the last couple of days. We appreciate you. Everybody, have a great rest of your Monday. We'll be back at it tomorrow. John and the K back right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.